Boom! Face reveal. I was I was gonna save the face reveal, a couple more videos, and then I remembered that I stream, I I I stream with a face cam. So if you see me there, it's already been face reveal, and it's just a whole thing. It's not important. This isn't what the video is about. You have eyes. You have peepers. You can see that we're doing a tier list today. Hey foodies, Future Food here. Quick update. So apparently, right, I released my Blight video before I released this one, which was not the original plan, and that's why you have the whole bit that I go into just a few seconds ago. You saw it, where I'm talking about the face reveal that technically already happened in the Blight video, because I'm a genius. So just ignore it and enjoy the rest of the video. It's a good one. Let's watch all 3 hours. Okay, get out of here. Bye. Hey, why are we doing a tier list? Because we're like 3 videos in, and I'm already establishing myself as just the worst of the worst. You know, it's, oh my gosh. It's not like when some content creators make a tier list. You know, this is different. This is like a few videos in, man. But we're still gonna do it because I think it's fun. And one thing I've noticed every time I try to discuss tiers with people, every time I try to bring it up, I notice I have some serious disagreements with chat whenever I talk about tier lists. I place killers not based off where the rest of the community is putting them. I don't, with all due respect to the really talented and amazing creators out there, I don't agree with some of what I see in these tier lists. And I'm not going to put certain killers in certain places just because, well, that's the prevailing logic. You're allowed to disagree, and it's okay. It's okay. You're still a beautiful person if you disagree with me. Less beautiful, sure, but still beautiful. No, I kid. We have fun here, don't we? Oh gosh, we have fun here. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do this tier list, but we're gonna spice it up a little bit. So each time I get to a killer, and we're going to take it in order of how they appear in the game. So from release date to now. So the base killers, from the base killers to Nurse, and then all the way down to Blight. Yes, we're going to include Blight. There are a few caveats with Blight, but we'll get to those when we get to those. So, I want to hop right in, and I want to give pros and cons about every killer, and then I'm going to explain where they end up on my tier list. Now, one quick thing I have to do, one thing that's necessary, I'm going to give credit to, let's see their name, at Marcos Slin 47. This is on Tier Maker. This person made the tier list, so I am using theirs. I thought that would just be easier than making my own because there was already a functional one with the Blight in there. So, Marcos, thank you so much for the tier list. I love you so much. Thank you for doing this. I don't know why. I don't know why the some of the killers have backgrounds in their pictures and some don't. I don't know why Blight is so skinny. But it's all good. It's a hell of a tier list. I did edit it slightly. I changed the colors around. I changed it where F was red and it slowly goes up to green. Why did I do that? But you big dum-dum, green means good, F means bad. Everybody knows that. Why does it mean that? Because it does. It just does. It's, pink is feminine and blue is masculine. Why? Nobody really knows. It's just, it's old. It's outdated. It's what we've always done. And that's, it's always a great reason to keep doing something because you've always done it that way. But that's not super relevant to the topic at hand. I get off on rabbit trails, but we're going to get right back on track, and we are going to get into doing the tier list, starting with our boy, the Trapper. And while we do this, I'm going to have my footage of Dead by Daylight here. This is happening live, so I can turn them around and all. As you can see, it's fascinating gameplay footage. But I don't know if you noticed, in the 10 types of survivors you'll meet in the fog, assuming that one's been released before this one, which I almost certainly will have. I'm stockpiling a couple to get the channel started, but I'm almost certain I'll do that one first. Second behind the Spirit video. But anyway, irrelevant. See, rabbit trails. You have my lovely boy, the Trapper here, level 50. Prestige 2, very fun. So let's talk about the Trapper. Let's get into pros, let's get into cons, and then let's tell you where he fits on my tier list. Because I have very strong feelings about Trapper, and I think a lot of people have very strong feelings about Trapper. He's the cover boy for the game. Oh, also, before going further, one last rabbit trail. So sorry. Down below, I'm going to try to leave timestamps in the description. So if there's a specific killer you want to check out, please go down to that timestamp, click ahead, you can see it. Now, granted, is the point of a tier list kind of to hear out the reasoning for everybody? Yeah, sure. But maybe you already know where Nurse is going to go. Maybe you know where Spirit's going to go. Maybe you know where Clown's going to go. You probably don't, but maybe you do. You know, you can go on and check somebody else. You know, it's a free country. You do what you want to do. I'm just saying, timestamps below. You go check those out. But anyway, back to Trapper. Trapper, what are his pros? What are his cons? So if you see me looking to the side, I have a little pros and cons list. I'm sorry, my memorization skills are blah. Das Food is F tier. Das Food is F tier, so we can go ahead and put him there. But his memory, at least, right? So Trapper, what are his pros? Firstly, I want to talk about Trapper's ability to snowball. Now, I want you to play a fun little drinking game, except I don't want you to play a drinking game, especially if you're underage. Every time I say snowball or lethality, I want you to take a shot. Again, please don't do this. I am begging you, do not play this game. However, throughout this list, both of those terms will be used a lot. So, mobility would be another good one that, oh gosh, we're going to use it a lot. Anyway, Trapper's greatest strength is his snowball potential. Trapper will set up a death zone. This is, if you're playing Trapper, kind of how you're supposed to play Trapper. You know, you don't want to put traps all over the map, because if you have a trap over here in place A, and you're over here in place B, and somebody steps in the one in place A, they're always going to get out. You're never going to get there in time. So you want to set up a zone where you can easily access all of your traps. And Trapper is amazing in this regard. If a proper death zone is set up, he can go from 1 to 2 hooks. You know, maybe the game hasn't been going very well for him, to boom, whole team is dead. You killed them all. You know, that's what Trapper brings to the table. That is his greatest strength. Trapper's ability to snowball is not unmatched. There are killers who have better snowball capabilities, but he is really, really talented at taking losing situations and turning them into a win. As the saying goes, pulling victory from the jaws of defeat. That is Trapper's forte, and honestly, if you're facing good survivors, that's going to have to be most games for Trapper. And we'll mention why in the cons here in a minute. But moving on to the next pro, Trapper has immense room for creativity. This is a killer, which, by the way, so cliched to throw the shout out, but I'm going to. If you watch Atsdarva on the channel, not Atsdarva, he will show you what I mean by the creativity that is possible with the Trapper. Trapper is not a killer where you're going to more or less play the same every game. And that's notable because, and it's going to be controversial to say, because I understand every Dead by Daylight match looks a little different than the one that came before it. But somebody like the Nurse, you know, you're going to play Nurse largely the same way every time, right? You are going to blink, you're going to find survivors, you're going to down them in 5 seconds, they're going to DC, rinse and repeat. That's a Nurse game for you. Trapper, you're going to have games where nobody steps on any of your traps. Maybe they have a map, maybe they have small game, I believe, works on traps. Maybe they're just really, really smart or really, really lucky. But you're going to have games where nobody steps on your traps. You're going to have games where every trap is stepped on. More often than not, of course, you're going to meet in the middle. Some will be stepped on, some will not. And of course, it comes down to how creative were you with the traps. Because if you just place them in the tall grass every time, once they know they're facing a Trapper, survivors are very unlikely to walk through tall grass without crouching and, you know, holding down that M1 button, waiting to disarm it. They are very intelligent when it comes to that. It's something they do very, very well. So there's room for creativity, but you need to actually take advantage of that. Because if you don't take advantage of it, you will be taken advantage of as a Trapper. And that's kind of the feast or famine that comes with him. And again, we're going to mention that a little more in the cons for him. We are going to give one more pro. So every killer, I tried to get at least 3 pros and 3 cons. Some of them, it was hard to limit it to 3 pros, and some of them, it was hard to think of 3 cons. Trapper was not one of those. He really has one more thing that I think really goes in his favor. That being, he can shut down loops prematurely if he has a trap in hand. So, say you're looping, the god loops are gone, the broken loops, the infinites is what they were called. You think of, like the Ironworks of Misery. No map has ever lived up to its name more than the Ironworks of Misery because of that damn loop where, oh my gosh, they could just loop you and loop you and loop you. And I hated it. I wanted to quit the game. I hated that one so much, but I didn't because persistence, right? Now you're blessed with these videos. Lucky. But anyway, the trapper, if he has a trap in hand and he wants to shut down that loop, all he's got to do is put that trap down, which, by the way, ever since they buffed the trapping animation, is extremely viable to do in a chase because it used to take something like 5 seconds to put a trap down, which was just ridiculously long. So what you'll see a lot of trappers do nowadays is if they realize they have an unfavorable loop, they will begin the trapping motion. Now, this is where you have room for mind game and some of that creativity we mentioned earlier. Do you put the trap down, or do you take the risk of only halfway doing it and then not finishing the motion and continuing the chase? Because what you'll see a lot of times, especially inexperienced survivors, they're going to run away from the loop. And that's not a dig at anybody who runs away from it. I'm very likely to do that too, because the alternative is usually not worth the risk. You want to go and you want to find another pallet. But of course, that's part of it for Trapper too. If you don't put the trap down and they just go to another safe loop, then you have to decide, well, do I want to shut one of these down, go around the other, break the pallet? What do I do? But that is an ability that he can do. He can get them out of really strong loops and get them into maybe more of a 50-50 type loop, maybe an unsafe pallet. And that's definitely a pro for the Trapper. So good on Trapper. That's very strong for him. He has a lot of cons though. And I'm a little surprised, if I'm being honest, at just how weak the cover art character is for Dead by Daylight. And just to give some examples of what I would be talking about here, I play a lot of games, and though Dead by Daylight's my main one, I've noticed that the cover character has a habit of being pretty strong in a lot of them. So you think Tracer in Overwatch, you think Valkyrie in Rainbow Six Siege, which I don't think she was actually on the physical cover because she was a DLC. It's not, we're not talking about that. It's a different thing. But basically, it's amazing to me that there's this cover character who is, by the way, let's call it what it is. He's Jason Voorhees. He is legally safe Jason Voorhees, and he looks great. I love Trapper, but he's just not very strong. So what are his cons? Con number 1, and this is the biggest one. This is his biggest con. Probably. Probably. I just saw con 3 out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, well, maybe. I don't know about this one, but anyway. Number 1 is that he has a weak early game. For Trapper, it's not a question of, well, how many gens are going to be near popping when I get my first hook? His question in almost every game is going to be, well, how close to finished is my death zone going to be by the time the first 2 gens pop? And what you want to do is you want to have your death zone finished by the time those first 2 gens pop. And I know that sounds like, wow, you have to plan for the first 2 gens being popped like that, but you really, really do. It takes Trapper forever to set up his winning conditions. And within that time, it requires creativity, it requires map knowledge, it requires knowledge of what survivors are typically going to do there, or maybe, maybe you've played this survivor before and you have a habit of knowing what they're going to do. Maybe you saw them with the map and you realize, well, we're kind of screwed. We're going to have to put them in places where we can force them into the traps instead of just hoping they step on them. So many things go into the early game for Trapper, and it takes him a long time to get set up. So that early game is awful. It's dreadful. You'll see here on the screen, assuming, I wanted to make sure I still had it on the right screen. I have Corrupt Intervention on Trapper. I never take it off. Corrupt Intervention is necessary on Trapper. And actually, I would be really a lot smarter than I am now if I maybe replaced One of the two tracking perks. I have two tracking perks here. If I replaced one of them with Pop Goes the Weasel, which maybe I don't have it, and that's why I'm not running it. Yeah, it doesn't seem like I have it. Oh, I do have level 1. Okay, that's irrelevant though. The point I'm making is if I would replace one of them with Pop for the gen regression later, it would make up for the really bad start time. Trapper has an awful, awful, awful start time, and it's a major con for him, which kind of leads into his second con, which is that his feast or famine nature. I'm sure you've heard the phrase before, feast or famine. You're either going to eat, 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 or go hungry. That's it. Those are the options with Trapper. And in my experience and in my time of watching other people, really skilled people, way more skilled than me, play Trapper, it seems like he rolls famine far more often than he rolls feast. And that's okay if you're okay with that style of gameplay, but when you're talking about viability, it's worth noting that this is a killer who, it would seem, luck doesn't seem to be on his side very often. Very skilled Trapper players will probably see it more 50-50, maybe 60-40. I don't think anybody's going to be seeing 70-30 with the Trapper, but yeah, it just seems like the feast or famine for him is more famine, 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 feast, famine, famine. You know, I don't know. I just, in my experience, and I will say, as we go through all this, I'm not going to try to have a ton of pros or cons be things that are very almost colloquial, almost like, well, these are my experiences. But it is worth noting that when you're doing a tier list, it's largely off your experiences, right? Now, you know, I watch streamers all the time. I love being an active part of these communities and getting to learn from very talented players. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's got to come down to what do I feel about this? And one thing I personally feel about Trapper is if you're telling me it's like a 50-50, I don't really believe that for him. I think more often than not, he comes up on the wrong side. And Con 3 kind of would explain why, and it's that he's highly counterable. And there is nothing Trapper can do that the survivors cannot counter, and counter, I hate to say it, but relatively easily. So again, you might want to say, oh, well, you can counter the spirit when she's phase walking, but really, she comes down to a lot of 50-50 plays. Maybe she gets you, maybe she doesn't. But more than that, it's more like maybe you get away, maybe you don't. And she can continue the chase, and, you know, if you throw enough 50-50s at somebody, you're going to get one of them. That's why Spirit is so good. We're going to get around to Spirit. You already know what tier she's going to be. But with the Trapper, he's highly counterable. If you bring a map, Trapper is up a creek without a paddle. You are going to know where his traps are. It's going to be a long day for him. If you bring a toolbox, I believe you can still sabotage traps. Maybe they changed that? I don't really remember. When they did the Sabo rework, I know they did something with traps. Can't remember what they did. Can't remember for the life of me. Gosh, a better streamer would know this. But either way, he's highly counterable. You can pop his traps. I believe you can break his traps. You can see his traps, whether that's just with a map or with your eyes, because unless he's bringing this bad boy right here, the tar bottle, which is a fantastic add-on. And I didn't mention it in his pros, but I mentioned it for some killers. So I'll go on and give a little complimentary pro here and say that Trapper actually has some pretty good add-ons. He has several add-ons that you can make a solid case for why you should bring those, and that can't be said for every killer. So good for Trapper, good for behavior in designing that. But going back to it, yeah, he's highly counterable. And I feel like you should probably be getting a pretty decent idea of where I feel Trapper stands. So let's go on and hit the screen cap here and go up to our tier list. And I hate to do it, man. I hate to do it. I wish I could put Trapper in S tier because I think he's a really cool concept. I wish I could put him in A tier or B tier because that's actually the best place I think a killer can be. S tier, people get sick of S tier killers. And I did say plural killers. There's more than one. Is there 2? Is there 3? Is there 4? Let's see later on in the video. Or you can just click to the end and see it and come back to this point. I'll never know. But either way, Trapper, I'm so sorry. My man, my dude, I love you, but you're going to go D tier. Now, one quick thing to note about this is the closer they are, or the further they are, I should say, to the left, the better I think they are. So, for example, this isn't what I'm going to do. But let's say I was putting Nurse in D tier because spicy takes only here. If I have it like this, it means I think Trapper is better than Nurse. If I have it like, yeah, they're not going to do it. Okay. If I have it like this, it means I think Nurse is better than Trapper. Now, obviously, that's ridiculous. Nurse is not going to be in D tier, but you get the point. You get what we're going for there. So, Trapper, he gets D tier. I'm sorry. I love him. I would like to see a buff sometime soon. Let me know in the comments below if you want me to make videos addressing buffs I would like to see for the killers that end up C or below, because I think there are realistic but not game-breaking things that can be done to improve the quality of life for all of these killers. So going back to the Dead by Daylight screen here, I am going to click on the Wraith, who is an absolute cutie. And first off, credit to behavior. I'm not sponsored, I promise. I'm way too small to be sponsored. But I want to give them credit. Man, this is a cool skin. I like this skin a lot. I know the weapon doesn't go with it, but just bear with me. This is from the Rift for the most recent, as of the time of recording, most recent tomes and all that. The most recent Rift, I should say. And it's beautiful. This is just a hell of a skin. I think it looks great, but that's not going to factor into his ranking. So, what does Wraith do well? What are his pros? His first pro, and this is a pretty serious one, he can drop his terror radius on a whim. When he wants to get rid of his terror radius, he's going to get rid of it. It's easy. It takes holding down the M2 button and bing bong, terror radius gone. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. That cannot be overstated how nice that is, to be able to get rid of your terror radius. That is something that would be, of course, absolutely broken if they didn't kind of cap the Wraith in the way that the ways that they do. But yeah, I want to give them credit for a really strong power, at least on the surface, with his ability to cloak. I think it's pretty good. And, you know, I don't know, man. I like the Wraith. I really do. I think he's a super fun one to play. I kind of struggled to come up with 3 pros for him. But, you know, let's give some kind of tepid pros here and say that he has decent mobility. That's 2. And 3, solid add-ons. So if you look at the, we're going to go straight into the add-ons here and say that if you look at what the Wraith has as an add-on, he's got quite a few that can really work in his benefit and also change his playstyle some. So if you get the Coxcomb Clapper, which, say that 3 times fast, that's a very unique one in that it takes out a lot of his mind game potential with the bell, but obviously it makes his ability to sneak a billion times better. So that's kind of an interesting one. Obviously, if you have played much Wraith, you're going to know that the Swift Hunt is a good one for him, especially the purple one. Once you start getting moderately is all right. Slightly is almost nothing. It's barely going to change anything. So the Swift Hunt is a really, really solid one. And then he's got some like Shadow Dance where you can basically just speed vault over everything. Pair it with Bamboozle for hilarious results. You know, double stack the Shadow Dance and then put Bamboozle on and see what happens. But, or, you know, you do it with Brutal Strength or something along those lines. And it's great. He can make for some really fun builds. And, you know, against non-optimal survivors, they're pretty good builds. And even against optimal survivors, when you can use Brutal Strength and Swift Hunt to explode pallets in like 0.2 seconds, which is an exaggeration, don't quote me on that. It's pretty cool. It makes looping a lot easier for you. But of course, he does come with some serious cons, and we're gonna talk about it now. So we gotta look over here. We gotta see. Yes, okay. Firstly, and this one's very important, even though it's necessary, I think, it's his long uncloak times. You know, the Wraith, unless you are running the aforementioned Swift Hunt add-ons, it takes them a while to get uncloaked, and that's where it feels odd, and I don't feel great about basically knocking them for, hey, you required people to think, but you really do have to position yourself in an advantageous position so that when you uncloak, when you're going through that long thing, maybe they can't see you, they don't know where you're coming from, which, by the way, just a kind of an off thing, the Bone Clapper is great for that. The Bone Clapper really, really helps out if you ever want to do that. Just putting that out there. That really helps to throw off your bell sound. The Bone Clapper makes it so that instead of like, oh, wow, I hear that coming from this direction, he's right over here, it goes all around you. Where is it coming from? I don't know. So there is potential to really render the long uncloak time kind of null, but it is worth knowing. It's unfortunate for him. It's very unfortunate for him. I will, let's see. I will say that I thought I had a different screen up. I'm glad I had the right one up. That's good. That's good. We're learning. I'm professional. Oh my gosh. So he's, this one's probably the most controversial. And I hate that we jumped right into the Wraith. That Wraith was the second one. Because I don't think any killer has been more hotly debated over the past year or so than the Wraith. There's some very intelligent, very skilled people who think he's really good. And some very intelligent, very skilled people who think he's pretty underwhelming. I'm just going to go on and tell you, in case you haven't picked up on it, I fall in the latter category. But who knows, maybe it's because I'm boosted. Maybe I just don't play him right. But he's weak in loops. That's the second thing for me. He's just not very strong in loops. I've heard people make the case that because Windstorm... I think it's... Or was that Windstorm? No, that's... Yeah, okay. Windstorm has been added to his base kit, so basically... Bing bong, he uncloaks, he gets a small little sprint burst of sorts. Yeah, it's nice. It's nice that that's not an add-on anymore, that that's just there. That's just part of his kit. I don't think it quite makes him good in loops, though. I think he's pretty counterable, unless you're going up against a really good Wraith. And even then, I think a really optimal Survivor beats a really optimal Wraith 9 times out of 10. So maybe not 9 times out of 10, maybe 7 or 8 times out of 10, but 9's probably harsh. Additionally, we gotta talk about, he's a stealth killer with very little stealth. So as great as it is he can drop his terror radius, he has another issue. He has another issue in the fact that you can see him pretty easily. I mean, even when I had just started the game and I was a baby Meg roaming around, I know, baby Meg, gross, I know, but I wasn't on PC. I just had the starter characters. Forgive me, I should have chosen Dwight. I know, but anyway, I'd see that coming. I'd be like, oh look, it's the Wraith. He's so easy to see with his shimmer ability, and the bell sends out a message to everyone. Hey, he's cloaking. He's trying to go sneaky. He's sneaking. And to me, that's an odd mechanic that they would put the bell in there. I don't know, man. I guess my thing is, and I'm not going to get into the fixes and all. I just wonder, and I'm thinking out loud. I didn't plan this before the video, so maybe this is a terrible idea. Maybe you're going to hate this. Would it kill them to change it to where he does the bell when he uncloaks, but he doesn't do the bell when he cloaks, to give him a little more sneaky? I don't know, maybe. It would also, that'd probably be something of a nerf, actually, now that I think about it, because it would hurt his ability to mind game around loops. So I don't know, man. I don't know. He's kind of a complex case, but, you know, I'm not super impressed with what I see from the Wraith. And with the Wraith, I went back and forth a lot. Do we put him in C? Do we put him in D? I put him in C. I think he's a C tier. I'm gonna go on and tell you, he's not far from D. There are some people that are gonna pass him in C tier. But you know what I will say is, even when I'm giving harsh reviews of killers, it should be noted that I am of the probably controversial opinion that most killers are pretty decently balanced in this game. I think the problems with balance are greatly overrated in this game, in my opinion. Not that it's a perfectly balanced game, but I think that some people aren't really realizing quite how balanced it is if you look at the statistics, which again, it's been since late 2019 since we got statistics, so who knows, maybe in the meantime it's kind of super unbalanced. Speaking of super unbalanced, let's go to Mr. Hilly Billy, who, do you remember when we all bought into that hysteria? Hillbilly's dead. He's dead. We can't play him anymore. They killed our boy. Look what they did to our boy. Yeah, it turns out he's still pretty good. I don't know, right? Like, turns out he's still pretty good. So, some egg on my face for that one, because, man, I thought they were going to kill him. I thought this was... I thought that they had nerfed him into the ground. I thought the chainsaw overheat mechanic was stupid. And, you know, for what it's worth, I still don't like the overheat mechanic. I don't think it was necessary. But for those of us who thought this is going to knock him down several tiers, which I never said several, but you get my point. Yeah, we were wrong. We were very, very wrong because it turns out he's still extremely good. Why is he good? Boom, pros, cons. Let's do pros first. Pro number 1, A+++ mobility. There is no killer who can reliably get from side A to side B of the map. All he's got to do is rev that chainsaw and he's gone. He gets to the other side, he's gone. He's got, and I'm sorry for saying meow. I'm sorry for giving the sound effect for the chainsaw. I also regret that. But the point stands that Hillbilly, look, I'm taller now. The point stands that Hillbilly has tremendous mobility. He is insanely skilled in getting from one side of the map to the other, and he can do it without, it's not like it's hard to do. It's not like only skilled, excuse me. It's not like only skilled hillbillies can do it. Anybody can. I can do it. You can do it. A monkey can do it. A monkey. Now, granted, monkeys are kind of awesome. Like, I don't know. I go off on these tangents about monkeys. I'm not gonna do it here, but I'm just saying. Anyway, the pro number 2, lethality. Great lethality. Hillbilly can find and execute like few other killers. If you are facing a good hillbilly, the odds are, and I'm putting it out there, the odds are he's never going to M1 you. He, assuming this is a good hillbilly and not a me hillbilly, he's going to M2 you. He's going to down you instantly. And once he gets that rolling, man, hillbilly, I didn't list snowballing as one of his benefits because I don't think it quite applies to him in the same way. But it is worth noting that any insta-down killer can really start snowballing. So give Hillbilly some credit there. Great lethality, great mobility, and finally, he's got a really high skill ceiling. So one thing I think that is lost with Hillbilly, and one thing I heard a lot during the nerf was some survivor mains, which by the way, just putting it out there, I play a lot of both sides. I'm decent at both sides, not just legendary at either side, you know, so I lean killer. I like the killer community a little more, but, you know, I'm not one of these like, oh, you play Survivor? Yikes, man. You know, I don't care. If you're playing and you're enjoying the game, great, you're doing it right. Just go enjoy the game. But anyway, the point is, I did hear a lot of Survivor mains saying, oh, Hillbilly, he's too good, and you don't have to have skill. But that, to me, would indicate that maybe they haven't played Hillbilly, because the difference between a pro Hillbilly, between an upper echelon Hillbilly and a decent Hillbilly is immense. The skill ceiling is definitely high. And look, giving credit where it's due to this nerf, right, that was so controversial. Yeah, in the hands of a Hillbilly main with, you know, 3,000 hours on the character, he was downright oppressive. He was very hard to not beat. It's not about beating him. It was hard to hang with him at all. So, you know, very, very impressive. But what would be the cons of this killer? What does he do poorly, right? So looking at this chart here, which is conveniently in bullet points, so I can fill in the rest, because damn, when I was writing this last night, I had a lot more faith in me than I usually have during daylight hours. So the chainsaw overheat function, which was brought in with the nerf, it does limit his lethality. It doesn't eliminate it, and it doesn't make it to where it's low, but it limits it. There was a time where if a team full of borrowed time players bum rushed a hook, you know, Hillbilly could just one by one, boom, you're down, boom, you're down, boom, you're hit, BT, boom, you're down, boom, you're down. You know, now his chainsaw doesn't quite work like that. Now he's a little more susceptible to that kind of thing, but obviously that's such a niche situation. It felt like a weird thing to put on as a con, but I'm putting it out there. You know, yeah, his lethality, while still really, really good, it was lowered with the nerf, because obviously that's what the nerf was intended to do, was lower that lethality. Yeah, it's okay. Next, and this one's the bigger one, he struggles on indoor maps. He really does. Hillbilly is at his best when he can start circling around the map. He can get from one side to the other. He can keep his eye on all the generators. He's going to find survivors very quickly. But then you put him on a map like Hawkins, and all of a sudden, see, he's angry. He doesn't want to go to Hawkins. Hillbilly Though he can still get his chainsaws off, though a good hillbilly will still win on Hawkins or Larry's or any of the indoor maps. He's see, every time I mention an indoor map, he just loses his shit. He says no. He cannot use his powers effectively on indoor maps, and hillbilly really he really struggles on indoor maps. These are not his friend. He needs wide open passageways to zoom around the map, and if he can do that, he's very lethal. He's very powerful. But where, oh where do we put him in terms of this this here tier list? Well, I'm glad you asked, person on the other side of the screen. I'm glad you asked. Hillbilly, for a time, to me, felt like he was teetering in S tier. It felt like he was about here. Like he was just trying to peek through into S tier, right? Great mobility, great lethality, everything you could want in a killer. Pretty good looper too. But with the chainsaw overheat function, yeah, I don't know, man. That, while not the hillbilly killer, I kind of thought it would be. It hurt his lethality. He ends up in A tier. He's still an exceptional killer. And he's still a great choice. If you're just now getting the game, if you're getting into it, maybe you're watching this trying to figure out, okay, well, let's look at this video and let's see, who do I want to play? Hillbilly's a great one to learn. A great one to spend a lot of time learning the mechanics of. People will hate you for it, but that's only because he's so good. He is so very good. Hillbilly, the rumors of his death were greatly exaggerated. And if you thought the rumors of his death were exaggerated, it didn't click. It never goes as I want it to. Nurse, right? When they nerfed Nurse, this is one where I can gladly say I was on the right side of history. So if with Hillbilly, I kind of complained and was proven a little wrong with that, I was very right with Nurse. When she got her nerf, and there were some who were saying, wow, they've killed her. They've killed the nurse. I was not amongst those, and I'm really glad I wasn't, because one thing that is abundantly clear is that she is not dead. She is nowhere near dead. In fact, if she did die, she came back from the grave with quite the vengeance. Nurse is still amazingly good. So let's get into the pros and try to help you understand why. Pro number one, she virtually eliminates looping. Now, if you were to talk about what the survivors' main methods for combating the killer were, what would you say? You could talk about stealth. Stealth matters. It's not going to come in handy every game, especially if you get somebody like Doctor, but it matters, right? Maybe teamwork. Teamwork's a great one against her. But, you know, instead of beating around the bush, let me just get right to it and say the main weapon that survivors have against killers is looping. It is wasting the killer's time while hopefully other survivors are out doing the objective. A team that is comprised of good loopers and objective-focused survivors will almost always win. Period. End of story. That's just how the game is set up. It's a 4v1. Nurse is unique in that when played at her highest level, or even at a very high level, she eliminates the main thing that survivors can do to combat her. She gets rid of looping. You want to wait on the other side of that pallet? Boom, she's going to teleport. Or blink. It's not teleporting, it's blinking. Freddy teleports. She blinks. There's a difference. You want to loop around Shaq? Boom, she's going to blink. She's going to hit you. You watch a nurse main, and you will realize looping does not affect them the same way it does somebody like, you know, just real quick here, my boy, you know, I'm a clown main. I love the clown. Look at this boy. He lives and dies by the loop. Nurse laughs at the loop. She doesn't have to worry about looping. She eliminates it. And that is why I think people get it wrong when they try to compare her to other killers and say, well, they do this or this well. You can't stress enough how massive it is that a great nurse is going to eliminate looping. That is astonishingly strong, and I'm very impressed with that. I'm just in awe of that power. So that's the first one, and that's a major one. Secondly, moving on, because apparently she wasn't strong enough yet, she has really good mobility. So it's not what it used to be, where you could get the Omega Blink nurse, where, you know, in 2 blinks she's across the map. But thank goodness that's gone. She didn't need it. She didn't need that. Nobody needs that. You don't take the strongest killer and then give her that. or 5 blinks. It's bullshit. She still has good mobility. Even after the nerf, she still has great mobility. Now, you know, it's kind of one of those interesting things. Nurse, her mobility is kind of countered by the fact that when she blinks, it makes it very obvious where she's going. You can hear those blinks, and you can generally locate them, especially if you have good headphones, which I have decent headphones. They're not above they're not, you know, top of the line, I should say, but they're decent. They're good enough headphones. And I can almost always hear it and say, okay, well, she's in this general area. She has blinked, and therefore I know where she is. And while you might say, well, okay, that's kind of a downside, it doesn't change the fact that her blinks are very good for mobility, and it takes a very slow base movement speed and just kind of makes it irrelevant. So very, very strong there. Third, and this one is so important. This is so very important. Almost as important as the other two, maybe more important. She has probably the highest skill ceiling in the game. The difference between a bad nurse and an elite tier nurse is so wide, it's like they're playing different characters altogether. And that's true to some extent with every killer, where if you take the best, who I've been hard on Trapper, right? I was hard on Trapper. Well, you take the best Trapper player, and you take a bad Trapper player, or even the average Trapper player, and you're going to see a massive difference in terms of how well they perform. The difference with Nurse, though, is just astonishing. This is a killer who, in the right hands, I don't like to use the term unbeatable, especially because it makes me worry they'll nerf her again, but she's pretty damn unbeatable when the right person is playing against her. She is just an astonishingly good killer. And I'm sorry to use the word astonishingly twice, maybe 3 times, I don't know, to describe her, but that's what I keep coming back to, is a sense of astonishment at how good this character is. She is so very strong, and her skill ceiling is just way up there. Way up there. I say as I barely hit the edge of the frame. Like I should just put out a frame, right? All that to say, what are the cons of the nurse? Like, obviously, I have thrown a lot of praise her way, but she comes with some caveats, and they're very worth noting. So, con number 1 ties into what we were just talking about, the difference between a great nurse and a bad nurse, or even an average nurse. And what's notable about it is that she's very difficult to play. That's the first con. You will see a lot of new players avoid the nurse like she is some kind of disease. They don't want to play the nurse. That was me. There was a whole meme in the first year of my channel where people called me a poo Norse because I got flamed in the post-game chat. That's what somebody called me, and I loved it. I thought it was so fitting, so accurate. And I hated playing the nurse so much that I made the highest channel point reward to make me play nurse, because I was never going to play her unless people made me play her. And while I'm still not good with nurse, I got to the point where I was a little better and I enjoy her now. But the point is, there's such a skill curve, a learning curve that is, that she's miserable to play probably for your first 100 games as her. She is just a very, very tough killer to get the muscle memory down. And additionally, one thing that I think a lot of people, myself included, a misgiving that they develop about the nurse is they may question her lethality. And I say including me as in when I first started playing, not where I am now. Her lethality may come into play because she punishes conservative gameplay very harshly. And by punishes it, I mean she punishes you, the killer, for playing too conservatively. You have to be aggressive with the nurse. That's why she pairs really well. I don't know if I actually have it on her, because as you can see, I prestiged her. And I'm not one of these people who has everybody prestige 3 with all the perks. We're working on it. We're not there yet. Do I have... I don't have it. What's the plague perk again? Don't you tell? Can't you tell? I play this game all the time. Infectious Fright. That's what it's called. Infectious Fright goes really, really well on the nurse. I will get back to plague in a minute. I have some controversial takes there. But the nurse benefits from Infectious Fright because she's one of the killers who you want to play really aggressively. Once you secure a down, if you do that and you see somebody else in your area, go after them. Slug. Some people have an issue with slugging. Nurse, she can really take advantage of slugging if you are a good nurse. She is made to be aggressive. So go out and be aggressive, lest you end up with a 2K and the feeling that, well, I did all right. And then the third one I did here was Oh gosh, I think I just broke my neck. The third one I did here was kind of an interesting one, just because I wanted to put it out there, is that there are some things she does not synergize very well with at all. Some perks that you might think. So, for example, when I first started playing Nurse, I thought it was a great idea to put Save the Best for Last on her. But it's actually not, because when she blinks and she hits somebody, she doesn't get a stack. She only gets a stack if she M1s them. And you're not going to be M1ing very much as a nurse. At least you shouldn't be M1ing very much as a nurse. So she has perks that are really upper tier, great perks like Save the Best for Last that she just can't use. And then she obviously has some that are decent on some killers that are useless on her, like Bamboozle or Brutal Strength. You don't need to be using either of those on Nurse. It's a complete waste of time. However, just to kind of give the other side of that coin, there's some like I'm All Ears, which are decent but not great on a lot of killers, but are really, really, really good on her. So I would highly recommend running I'm All Ears on the Nurse. Also, it's worth noting that because of her slow mobility when she's not using her power, combined with her fatigue duration when she uses her power, she is susceptible to a bum rushing of the hook. If people just run up the hook and try to get somebody off, the odds are, especially with the BT play, she's not going to be able to defend that very well. And, it's notable. It's a notable thing. It's a weakness in a killer that is very, very strong. So, where do we put the Nurse? I feel like it's pretty obvious. I've been very complimentary. I have nothing but nice things to say for almost for the most part with Nurse. We're going to put her S tier. She's very, very good. The question, I would imagine your question was not, is she going to be S tier? Is she going to be number 1? And we'll talk about that because she has some real competition for number 1. So let's move on from her. Nurse, I'm a massive fan. I actually enjoy going up against Nurse, but it's because of that skill ceiling that I mentioned. Really, it's the skill floor that makes me enjoy going against her, because so many people are just so bad with her. It's fun to go up against. Speaking of a killer that people seem to struggle to play well, the Huntress. Now, I have gone on record as to say I think the Huntress is the model by which all killers should be modeled after. They should seek to emulate. And what I mean by that is I think the Huntress, one thing she does really well is, and I'm going to go back to the screen here so you can see my beautiful Huntress in her Cossack uniform. That's one of my favorite cosmetics. One thing the Huntress does really well is she brings balance of power and weakness. For every power, there's a weakness, and neither overwhelms the other to the point that she becomes brokenly strong or brokenly weak. So what does the Huntress do well? What are her pros? So pro number 1 is that when she's played at the highest level, she's almost unbeatable. Very much in the same vein as the Nurse. This is a killer whose upside is amazing. She is so very hard to loop if you're going up against the Umbras of the world, right? The really talented Huntress mains who they can load up that hatchet, and no matter what you do, they're going to predict your movements. They're going to get a hit from 15 yards, not yards, meters. They use meters in this game. 15 meters away or whatever. She's going to get these hits. She's going to get them consistently. She's going to down you. And also, there's not a lot you can do. You can try your best to be unpredictable, but Huntresses who play a lot, one thing I've noticed is they do really well is they get in the first part of the chase and they seem to kind of take in and memorize, well, how does this survivor play? And once they figure you out, you're dead. You're dead. You're not going to dodge her hatchets, and you best believe she's not going to miss. So at the highest level of play, which is generally what I want to go off of, is somewhere from when I give these tier list, I really want to think about, well, if this killer's played well, how is it going to look? And there's some like the Trapper who I think, well, even if you play him well, he's still pretty counterable, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it. Well, with Huntress, there's not a ton you can do if she's really, really good, and she can get you in positions you don't want to find yourself within. So she's almost unbeatable at the highest level. That's pro number 1. Pro number 2, unparalleled range. Nobody in the game has range like Huntress, and I'm sorry for clapping at you. I'm sorry for that. I didn't mean to. But Huntress is the only killer who, in these open air maps, she can hit you from across the map. She can deal that kind of damage. And again, this is a thing really good Huntresses do with some reliability. It seems so amazing to watch these MLG, oh my gosh, how did they get this 360, whatever. But they do it. And they do it fairly regularly to the point of where it's not that amazing if you watch a lot of it. But obviously it'll blow your mind every time if you're going against it, or if you just tune into a stream and you watch. Again, somebody like Umbra, who I very much enjoy. If you want to watch a really good Huntress player, Umbra streams on Twitch. Very, very talented. Gosh, that'd be really cool for every killer to give you like a recommendation of somebody who plays them really well. I'm not going to do that because I didn't prepare that, and I would hate to leave somebody out who really deserves to be put in. But on a few of them, we'll give some notable recommendations. But the point is, man, that range is nasty. That range on Huntress is so gross. It's so impressive. She's very, very strong. And lastly, to get back to one of the words of the day, snowball potential. This killer, once she gets going, oh my gosh, especially if she gets you in the basement, you're not getting out. Your friend is not getting out. Nobody's getting out except for the Huntress. She can defend a basement so well. She can defend a hook so well. She can capitalize off of a target-rich environment like few killers can. So obviously she's very, very impressive. Her lethality is just off the charts, honestly. And of course, I'm not going to list this as a pro because I think it's gross and it needs to be edited greatly. I tend to be if the debate is a slight reduction in power or a power creep, I favor power creep for killers. Sure, make them stronger and stronger, but there is no reason for the utility belt and the Eerie head. So for those of you who don't know, we're gonna go on the Huntress here, and we're gonna click on her add-ons. So you'll notice I don't have it equipped. And I don't have many add-ons for her, but the add-on that, unless I'm missing, maybe going to the brown ones, the add-on I have the most of for her here is the Eerie head. Why? The Eerie head makes it where every hatchet you hit instantly downs a survivor. Paired with the infantry belt, so the Eerie head takes you down to having one hatchet, but you put the infantry, that's the word, infantry belt on, and you get up to 3 hatchets. 3 insta-down hatchets. You can down all but one member of the team with that. Stupid. It's a stupid add-on thing, and gosh, don't run it, guys. Don't run it. Just run something else, please. For my sake, if you love me at all, please don't run that. It's just so gross. Please don't run it. But anyway, we're not going to factor that into pros because I do think that'll get nerfed at some point. Hopefully. Hoping and praying, right? Cons. What is the downside of this very powerful killer? Because I'm going to go on and tell you, for all that I said really, really nicely about her, she's not an S tier for me. She's not an S tier killer. And A tier is one that's actually kind of debatable for her. So what are her downsides? I mentioned that for every pro, there's a con. So I mentioned that she has that limitless range. Con number 1, she is very weak on inside maps. Much like the Hillbilly, her bread and butter is playing on outdoor maps and getting this ability to be a constant nuisance, and more than nuisance, be a constant threat. Because kind of comparatively, the Doctor can be a constant nuisance to survivors. Legion can be a constant nuisance to survivors. Huntress is a constant threat to survivors. You are never really safe from her unless you are on an indoor map hiding behind a gen or a wall or something like that. So obviously indoor maps greatly hurt her ability to deal damage. And beyond that, let's go into the big one, the one that everybody's going to talk about, the one that everybody knows. Everybody knows there's an issue with the Huntress, but man, her hitboxes. What are these hitboxes? They're crazy. You will throw a hatchet. You will see it hit Dwight. You'll be like, I got a hit. Like she just did there. She throws it. She hits Dwight, except it doesn't register the hit. And Dwight's not put in the injured state or the down state. And you're just left to scratch your head. Maybe it was your last hatchet and you have to go reload now. That's a major downside. These hatchet hitboxes are quite bad. And I don't want to be a pessimist. I try to be a really optimistic person, but I'm just going to put out there that this will continue to happen as long as the game's connection works as it does, where, maybe it looks one way on the killer screen, it looks one way on the survivor screen, but in reality, it's some merging of the two. Until that gets fixed, that's going to be an issue for her. But for such a precision-based killer, that's a massive issue. I'm sure you can think of another precision-based killer who's going to come far later down in the list. He's the Yeehaw boy. Same issue for him. Same issue for Deathslinger. You are going to be at the mercy of these hitboxes, and these hitboxes are not reliable. So that's definitely a downside for her. Lastly, let's go on and talk about her mobility, which is atrocious. But by the way, when I list a con, it's not always me. In fact, it's pretty rarely me criticizing the devs and saying, oh, change this. It's good. It's good that she has low mobility because she is, as I mentioned earlier, she's a constant threat. So thankfully, she has this really, really wide lullaby radius, which is much larger than any killer's terror radius. And what it does is it lets survivors know she's coming. She's coming for you. And she's coming very slowly. She does not move at the 115 of a lot of killers. I want to say she moves at something like 110 or 105. I think it's 105. I may be wrong there. So she moves a lot slower than the other killers. And additionally, she has to reload her hatchets fairly frequently because one thing I've noticed with good Huntress players is they really just let the hatchets fly, man. They're not... Again, this goes for a lot of killers where conservative gameplay is going to bite you. Whereas with a survivor, sometimes erring on the side of caution is going to help you. Killers need to be aggressive. Sometimes they'll blow up in your face, but it's always better to be aggressive, when in doubt, at least. So having to reload her hatchets, the fact that she tips them off that she's coming with that loud ass terror radius, lullaby radius, and the fact that her movement speed is just so bad compared to everybody else's. Well, everybody but Nurse, who she's actually faster than. Yeah, you know, there's some serious downsides to this character. So let's do it. Let's get back on Tier Maker. Go to this screen and say, where do we put Huntress? Well, we know she's not going to be in this range. She's clearly far too good to be in any of these. But her downsides are far too notable to be here. And for what it's worth, ooh, man, you know, there were several killers I really struggled with where to put them because it seems arbitrary, but for the sake of intellectual honesty, you know, it matters. Where do I think she falls? A tier, B tier? Is she high B tier, low A tier? And for me, because we're going off the topic of how does she play? You know, when a good person is playing her, how does she end up looking? That leads me towards A tier, but then I also think, man, she's at the mercy of the servers if she's going to be truly effective. So what we're going to do here, and I hate to do it, man. I hate to do it. B tier. I'm putting Huntress B tier. And that's notable. That's notable because I've said I think she's the model which all killers should emulate. I don't have a problem with Nurse. I don't have a problem with Hillbilly. It's not that I have a problem with powerful killers. I just think she presents a great amount of, wow, if you're good with her, you can really do well. You can really abuse. And if you're facing a good survivor, if you're the survivor and you're going against her, you can really counter. You can do all kinds of things. And I know you go back, some people may say, well, look, you said a good Huntress, like, oh, you're not going to dodge her hatchets. That was a little hyperbolic. You know, if you are a really good survivor, you can counter her. Now, is she eventually going to get you? Yeah, probably. But, you know, that's kind of the thing with survivors. The name of the game when looping is time wasting. Time wasted, I suppose. You want to waste the time of the killer until the gens are done. So if she eventually gets you, that's not the game being broken. That's not her being too strong. And I think she's in a good place in upper B tier. If there was anything, you know, if there was a way to put her just dead set in the middle of A and B, I'd do it, but that would also diminish it. So we're not going to do that. I feel good about that. I feel pretty good about putting her there. You know, I went back and forth. I'm looking at my notes here. In the notes, I put her low A tier. Here I'm putting high B tier. You know, you ask me on a different day, she'll be A tier or B tier. It's just one of those things. So I'm going to go here to the next boy up, which is The Shape, Michael Myers. And Michael's interesting. There was a time... Please tell me I did not just unplug my mic. I didn't. Okay, good. There was a time where if you watched the tier list, and I know because I've been in this community for quite a while, there was a time where Michael was generally seen as high B, low A tier. Over time, though, man, his star has faded. People are really harsh on Michael now, and there are numerous reasons for that. Firstly, when it comes to Michael, the stealth playing community, they remarried. They found someone new, and we'll get to him in a minute. But Michael's an interesting killer. Michael is a very interesting killer, and I don't think he always gets his due. I think there are things Michael does really well that he's not getting credit for. I'm gonna go and tell you up front, he's not A tier. Those who would put him in A tier, I would love to hear your reasoning. I just don't see that, man. I don't see that at all. But what does he do well? So firstly, let's go and click. We're gonna give you some movement in this video besides me moving my hands all over the place as I talk, which I do. Michael's add-ons. That's number one. His add-ons are godly. He has amazing add-ons. So if you look at what Michael has here, look at this. The flagrant, not flagrant. It's a flagrant tuft affair. No, I'm sorry. The fragrant tuft affair gives him infinite tier 3. That means if he charges that all of the way, what that means is he will be able to insta-down the entire match. That's nasty. That's very, very nasty. Okay, what about this? Judith's Tombstone. He can kill you without a Mori. That is so fun. I don't want to get demonetized. That is so strong. That is so very strong. That is an amazing add-on. Now it does slow you down. Burger King Myers, haha, he did the meme. I get it. But that's extremely strong. Obviously, even something like the Lock of Hair, that's very good. The Scratch Mirror, if you've played against enough Scratch Mirror Myers, as in like one, you probably have some bad memories associated with this one. Very, very spooky, very, very scary. But one thing that really separates Michael is, yeah, sure, okay, his ultra rares are very good, his very rares are very good. You get down to his rares, the Hairbow is good, the J. Myers Memorial is good. You go down to his uncommons, and you see things like the Dead Rabbit, which is, it's situational, but it's good. The Memorial Flower is very good. Even in his browns, the Boyfriend's Memo is going to be run with the Scratch Mirror very frequently. So you have very consistent use for a brown add-on, much like Freddy, who has a brown add-on that's used a lot. So that's very good. His add-ons are extremely strong. Moving on to point 2, stealth capabilities, quite good. You will notice here I am running Monitor and Abuse, which, just to give a quick little thing here, it drops your terror radius by 8 meters. What is Mike's terror radius? That's not what I meant to click. What is his terror radius? Oh, 6 meters. So he has a terror radius of 0 meters when you run that. Now, obviously, that's his base one. It goes up as he reaches tier 2, and then tier 3, it gets massive. I get it. But in tier 1, it's going to be a lot easier to get your stalk off if you use Monitor and Abuse. Great synergy with that perk. I like to run Discordance. If 2 people are on a gen, you can go charge up pretty quickly. So just a little tip there. Not that I'm some kind of Myers main. I do like Michael, though. You'll notice he's one of my few Prestige 3 killers. I think he's a very fun killer. He's very rewarding to play. Look at him, though. He's beautiful. His ability to sneak is very strong, especially when you pair it with an indoor map. So, you know the meme build. You know Scratch Mirror. You put Monitor and Abuse on. You put Scratch Mirror. And then you hop over to your offerings and you go to, let's say, Hawkins, right? Or you go to the Gideon Meat Plant. Or maybe, do we have a Larry's? We have a Larry's. Yeah, any of the indoor maps paired with the Scratch Mirror. Very, very scary. Very terrifying, man. Very, very good stealth ability. I'm very impressed with Michael. And how often I can use the word very. Number 3, word of the day, Snowball. Snowball potential defines Michael. If Michael does not get a good snowball in, he probably doesn't get a 4K. That sounds harsh. It's just kind of how he operates. He lives and dies by that popping of tier 3, getting, 2 or 3 downs and really taking over the match. Now, he doesn't have to kill everybody while in tier 3 or just after tier 3. He needs to use tier 3 to get some easy hooks, though. He can vault faster when he's in tier 3. He insta-downs people. He's incredibly lethal. His lunge gets just out of this world effective. Tier 3 Michael is very powerful, and it creates this ability for him to snowball in a way that is quite impressive. I'm very, very impressed with Michael. I've already said that I'm impressed with him, but yeah, he lives by that snowball, and it's really, really cool. Moving on to his cons, though, because he has some notable cons. And, if you listen to me describe that first part, you're like, well, Is he A tier? Is he S tier? But I already told you he's not A tier, you silly. Listen to me when I talk. Con number 1, and this is notable, multiple maps just neuter him. If you get Blood Lodge as Michael, you know where the DC button is. He struggles so much, man. He struggles so much when you put him on the Blood Lodge. Or Ormond, or several other maps. He's got some he just really doesn't do well on. That stalking ability can really hurt him. I don't know if you've heard this, but Michael is not a fan of corn. Corn maps are cruel to Michael. Michael hates them. Michael wants to cut down the corn. He does not find it amazing at all. Ha ha ha. Hoo hoo hoo. I made a joke. Mike liked it. But yeah, no, several maps really just kneecap this guy and really make him far less effective than you would like him to be. I just realized I've been doing this for an hour. I need water. Some good H2O. All right. Con number 2, he has a weak early and a mid game. Not Trapper weak per se, but very weak. Michael needs to get his stalking on. Look, and this isn't a 100% thing. If he can get, with his 0 terror radius, if he can get a grab and a hook, all of a sudden the early game is going really well for him. But that's pretty rare, especially against good survivors. They're going to be paying attention, and let's be honest, 3 out of 4 are going to be running Spine Chill. So, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd be careful about all that. But he has a pretty weak early game. He has a pretty weak mid game. Again, he lives for that late snowball where he takes over a game. So if you like to live a little dangerously, Michael may be your killer. Number 3, he requires smart gameplay every time. So there are some killers that once you get the muscle memory down, you can go in and you can have a good time and you can kind of just play around and see what you do. Michael is not one of those. Michael requires you to be thoughtful and focused every time you play him. You need to go in with a plan. And if you don't go in with a plan, that's bad. That's very bad. It's going to go very poorly for you. You know, ration your stalks. Don't drain somebody's ability to be stalked completely at the beginning of the game unless you are planning to tunnel and eliminate that person. Maybe they have objective obsession or something and you want to get rid of them. Okay, fine. Get all your stalk out on them, but be smart about it. Be smart. Don't just stalk relentlessly on the same people. Spread the love and play smart, because if you don't, you will lose. That is just part of what Michael brings to the table. What are his cons? Con number 1, and I accidentally scrolled down. I was looking at Hag. I was like, this makes no sense. But now I get it. Those were the Hag's cons. Cons for Michael. Guys, we're already on the cons for Michael, aren't we? That's why I was on the Hag one, because we were already talking about Michael's. Oh, no. I've been doing this for an hour. Give me a break. Yeah, moving on. That was it for Michael. That was his last con. That was his 3rd con, was that he requires smart gameplay. Oh, jeez. Just move on to the tier list and they won't notice your mistake. Where do we put Mike? Where do we put him? We put him in C tier. I love Mike. You could make a case for B tier. I think he's high C tier. He's a good killer. I like Michael. He's a very fun killer. And by the way, fun is the most important thing for a killer when it comes to me. So I like Michael because I think he's fun to play as, but some people want viability, and that's what we're ranking here. At some point, maybe we do a tier list based on how fun is this killer to play, you know, and that would look way different than a viability one, but, you know, it is what it is. Oh, you saw the notes. Don't peek. Don't go back and check out where I put everybody else. Hag, what does the Hag do well? This isn't the Hag. Gosh, the longer this video goes, the more mistakes I'm making. So I have a lovely little cosmetic for the Hag. I love this new hairstyle she got in the Rift. I love the glowing look. I think it's adorable. I hate the needle on her back, though. That's a little painful looking. I think she's got a cute little skirt. That's nice. And then also, it's one of the few skins where you get to bring a pet with you, so that's lovely. What does the Hag do well? What Hag does well is even better than Trapper. She creates death zones because she has 10 to Trapper's, what's Trapper? 3 base traps? Yeah, so obviously she can make her death zones just really intimidating. And you can say, oh, well, it's easy. You just crouch through them. Well, when she's chasing you, it's not so easy. Hag is able to set up entire parts of the map where you don't want to go. But obviously, if she can set it up around a 3-gen, you're going to have to go there, and then, it's going to hurt. You're not going to enjoy it. So, she is great at creating death zones. What else is she great at? Number 2, she's great at shutting down... I burped. She is great at shutting down loops. So, say you're going around and around and around and the hag's getting tired of this loop. All she's got to do is throw a little trap down. Next time you come around, boom, she pops up. She gets the chance for a mind game. You're best off just leaving that loop 9 times out of 10. So just get out of there. Move on to the next one. Hag kind of wins that loop. It's one thing she does really well. The third thing she does really well, and I felt kind of funny putting this one on here, if I'm being entirely honest. Because I think there's a case to be made that this could apply to all killers. But I think it really applies to certain killers. So when I mention it, it's not saying that it doesn't apply to other killers. It's saying that it particularly applies to these killers. So with this one, you know, all this build up, it's that creativity and intelligence reward a hag player greatly. So kind of like Trapper, you know, you can put your traps in places where everybody's going to expect them. You'll see hags do this, right? They hook somebody and they just litter the hook with a circle of traps. You can do that. It's a bad idea, but you can do it. If you want to get creative with your hag trap placement, your phantasm trap is what it's called. You want to set them up all around your death zone, and you want to put them in places where people don't think, oh, there's probably a trap there. You want to put them in places also where you can force them to step on them. You know, if you put one in the corner of the map, sure, maybe you get a Dwight roaming the corner of the map, you know, an outsider, but it's not likely to be a very effective trap. However, if you put one in the shack in front of God Palette, that's probably going to get used. You're going to use that trap at some point. So obviously, the more... And that's not even a creative place, by the way. I want to put that out there. I was talking about creativity and intelligence. That's not even a creative place to put a trap. That's an obvious place. But it's the kind of obvious where they're still going to have to trip it at some point. Cons. What does she do poorly? Firstly, Hag's base movement speed. If you're not used to playing the hag, you're going to feel like you're moving in slow motion. Man, she moves slow. Sorry about that. Compared, you add her slow movement speed with her low line of sight, and you might feel like you're playing a baby killer. But you know, it's a con. It comes back to bite her, but obviously what they're counting on is that you use her traps, A, to create a death zone, and B, that you use them in chase. And if you use them in chase, it makes up for that lack of mobility. But the lack of mobility is still there. And kind of like Michael, where you have to play intelligently if you want to win. That's going to be every hag game as well. Number 10. Number 10. So sorry. Number 2 is that 10 traps are not as many as they seem. You think, wow, we got a whole 10 traps. That's this many fingers to put around the map. This is so cool. Trapper only gets like 3. Trapper sucks. Hag rules. Well, 10 goes by pretty quickly. You're going to be putting them down. You're going to realize, oh shit, I wish I had more traps. I wish I had 30 traps. I wish I had 100 traps. Infinite traps. But obviously that would be slightly broken. Slightly. Just a wee bit broken. But 10 traps is not as many as it seems. It seems like a lot. You're going to burn through those pretty quickly if you're playing her right. If you are throwing down traps on the reg... On the reg? Do people say that? Is that still slang? How do you do, fellow kids? Oh my gosh. No! I'm old. I'm old now. It happened. We all knew it was going to happen. It happened. Oh gosh. Well, if you are putting traps down on the reg, am I right? I'm young too. You're going to realize the 10's not as many as you think, and you're probably going to wish that there was a way you could have more. But you can't. There's no add-on for that, so, eh. Lastly, speaking of add-ons, her teleport range is really bad unless you bring the add-on. So, for example, the dragonfly wings, I know are one of them. Can't remember what the, let's see, okay, it's the dried cicada. People struggle with that word, but I'm from part of the country where we have a lot of these, these little... But yeah, so those are going to greatly improve your hag gameplay, but I would recommend you learn to play without them. Learn to set up an effective death zone without them, and then you can start bringing these and getting a little more creative and expanding your death zone some. I don't know if people call it a death zone. I'm noticing I'm using that term a lot, and maybe it's popular, maybe it's not. But yeah, basically, a con is that she has a really low teleport radius without these two add-ons. These add-ons. I think she has one. Yeah, the mint rag, she can teleport to any trap in the level, though it comes with a cooldown now. again, when you're learning Hag, don't bring that. Don't bring that. You're going to learn how to play her poorly. You don't want to do that. But they have this because they have this add-on because, man, her base is just really, really bad. Her base teleporting ability. So, you know, it's a notable con, and I'm going to say something right now that's going to be very, very unpopular. Make them wait for it, Will. Make them wait for it. Okay, if her teleportability was infinite, which I'm not arguing that it should be. It should not be. I'm putting it out there. It should not be. But if it were infinite, Hag would be an S tier killer. I know. The killer who used to be F and D tier and so many things after her buff after buff after buff. I am now saying that if they did that final buff, she'd be not F tier. Damn, right back down to F tier. She'd be S tier. She'd be unstoppable. She would be a monster. But she doesn't have that, and she has a couple of cons. So where do we put her? I don't know. He said she's almost S tier. She's almost S tier. And what's funny is if you saw it in that brief little thing in my notes I showed you, I actually had her listed as B tier, but I made that at 2 in the morning last night. That's stupid. She's an A tier killer. She's A tier. Nothing but love and respect for what the Hag has going on. She's so talented. A tier killer. Probably low A tier, but A tier all the same. She's low A tier because she's so easy to abuse if not being played well. But then again, we're not really talking about people who don't play her well. We're talking about people who play her very well. And people who play her very well are going to be A tier killers, maybe S tier. I don't know. I'm not that smart. Why are you listening to me? What do I know? Okay, next up we have the Doctor. The Doctor, Shocky Boy, Herman Carter. What's up with the Doctor? I think this is terrifying. He's got the pale face with that just hulking body, and again, for monetization purposes, I'm not going to say what his weapon is. But oh boy, is it hard to make the case that it's anything but what it looks like. That's why I like to give him special weapons. Anywho, Doctor exists kind of in an interesting place as a killer, in that, man, people are divided on where he stands. He's polarizing for sure, which is not shocking. Where's my laugh? I think I have a laugh track. There it is. There it is. Anyway, thank you. I know, it's very funny. He zaps. What are the pros and cons of the Doctor, and where does he fall on the tier list? Pro number 1, and it's always unique when you want to say nobody does this better than this killer, because, you know, that's notable. And with the Doctor, nobody is tracking better than him. His tracking abilities are unmatched. You cannot hide from the Doctor. You can try. You can try to get in lockers and all that, but oh gosh, he is so disturbing to look at. That is just really getting to me. You're not going to hide from the Doctor. He's very, very good at finding you. All he's got to do, hold his button, and zap, he finds you. You're there. He's going to see the little imaginary doctors. He's going to find you. You need to be prepared for that. If you are super immersed and you don't like looping, understand the Doctor's going to find you. Now look, you can bring Calm Spirit and Urban and Quick and Quiet, and I don't know, man, there's so many stealth perks. You can do it. He's still probably going to find you. He's very good at that. So when I say that he is unmatched in his tracking ability, I truly, truly mean it. Nobody can track quite as well as the Doctor. And that's notable because for me, when I was first getting into the game, I was very bad at tracking, and I'm still quite bad at tracking. So I played a lot of Doctor and a lot of Old Freddy. Old Freddy used to, of course, see you if you were asleep and outside of his terror radius. It was great. I loved it. But everybody else hated it. So now we got new Freddy, and everybody loves that. Don't they? But what else does he do well? Doctor, number two thing, and this is also pretty important. He has vault/pallet throw denial. So I don't know that this is fully appreciated. Just how good of an ability this is. He can zap you, and if he times it well, you can't vault. You can't throw the pallet. That's so strong. That is so very good. I mean, think of that. If you're already injured and you need that pallet throw and he times his zap right, which very good doctors will do consistently, you're down. You're done. He countered your counter. What are you going to do? You're going to die. That's what you're going to do. So obviously that's a very strong ability. And lastly, third, Doctor, even before the rework, this was true, but after, man, it's just not even fair. He is a noob stomper. If you are new to playing Survivor at all, if you are unfamiliar with the process of looping or stealth or dealing with insanity or any of that, madness is what they call it, Doctor's going to make sure you have a very bad day. I find when I play with my lower skilled friends, which I don't mean as a dig, I just mean not everyone takes the game as seriously as I do, man. You know, some of them just play kind of recreationally. And when I play with them, it almost never fails that Doctor is their least favorite killer. They hate Doctor. They hate going against him because he takes all the things they're bad at and makes those the things they have to do well to defeat him. Doctor is very, very harsh on new players. And I kicked it. Everything's shaking. Okay. I would imagine if stats were put out of how he performs at exclusively brown ranks, he would probably be the most lethal killer. Which is funny because I think Nurse would probably be the least lethal. So it's funny how those skill floors and ceilings work. But anyway, that's not important. So what could be wrong with the Doctor? I just made him sound pretty strong, right? Well, he's like Huntress. The strengths are very strong. The weaknesses are very weak. So firstly, let's go on and put out there that he's, number one, he's very counterable. You can counter the Doctor. If you hit the skill checks, despite them spinning backwards or appearing off of the part of the screen where they'd usually be, yeah, that's not actually that hard if you're paying attention to the game. You're going to hit those more often than not. If you've ever been scared of an illusionary Doctor, please report to me. Let me know. I would like to interview you. I don't know how you fell for it. And that's past like the first week of playing the game. You know, once you're in it, if you've been playing for any real amount of time and you're still seeing imaginary doctors and like, oh shit, he's on me. You know, I don't know, man. I don't know what to tell you. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe just think about it. It's like he's on you with no terror radius and he's just standing there holding his weapon. It's so gross. Yeah, okay, con number two. He's less effective on large maps. You know, whereas he can really bully people in places like the Gideon Meat Plant or the Coal Tower, Doctor finds himself in a bit of a bind if he goes to the Temple of Purgation or Mother's Dwelling, you know, either of the Red Forest maps. He's really going to struggle there. He's not great on Father Campbell's Chapel. This is a killer who is amazingly strong when you're dealing with him on a small map, and he's a little underwhelming on larger maps. So, you know, that's one of those things. We have these killers. They perform well in these maps. They don't perform well in these maps. The issue for the Doctor, though, is that more maps are large than are not. Dead by Daylight has a habit of making larger maps than they do smaller maps. More larger maps, that is. So, you know, that's worth noting. It's worth noting that there are more maps in which he's going to load in and say, like, ah, crap, I didn't want this one. Then load in and go, oh, yes, I'm glad I got this map. Which is how the Doctor talks, in case you're wondering. That's how he sounds like, oh, yes, I am the Doctor. I am here to zap and to hit you with my, so, you know, he's not so great on that. And I mentioned that he's counterable, and point 3 kind of plays into that too. And it's that Madness really becomes very weak as you rank up. You know, there's a lot of talk about, red ranks, they don't represent skill. And generally that's true. I've played bad players plenty of times on red ranks. However, I will say pretty consistently, once you make it to red ranks, you're well versed enough in the game that the madness just doesn't affect you anymore. It's just really not a thing at that point. He still has powers that he can use against you effectively. His static blast or his static shock both still matter, but the madness aspect of his game is rendered just completely useless. It's not going to come into play at that point. So what does all this mean for our dear old Doctor? Also, before I put him on there, I want to give one final honorable mention pro. He has pretty good add-ons. There are lots of things you can play with his add-ons. He has nice synergy with several perks. So there are definitely things to like about the Doctor. And I was really tempted to put him in C tier because of his weaknesses. But his ability to prevent vaulting or throwing pallets makes me put him in B tier. I think that is such a strong ability. I think it's really nice. There's just a lot to like about what Doctor's got going on there, despite some notable drawbacks. So Doctor, he's in a good place. He doesn't need a buff. He doesn't need a nerf. He's fine where he is. He's not very fun to play against, though, if I'm being entirely honest. Talking about buffs and nerfs, let's talk about the big buff, the Bubba. I mean, you talk about getting a rocket strapped just to your rear end and being shot up the tier list, man. This guy was down with Clown in the F tier, and then they reworked him, and suddenly he's this looping god that nobody wants to play against, even though these Leatherface players, they still want to face camp at the hook, and I don't know why! But that's irrelevant. I'm a big fan of the Texas Chainsaw movies. Some of them. The first two. And, gosh, they get so bad, don't they? But, yeah, you know, look, I'm happy that Leatherface is in a good place. I just wish Leatherface players would stop playing up to the meme now, but they're not going to, and that's fine. Again, remember earlier in the video, like, way back, probably like 40 minutes ago, when I was like, hey, if you're having fun, that's good. You're doing it right. Great. If you have fun doing that, good for you. Just know that, the post-game chat probably isn't going to be super nice. Not for me. I don't like to flame people, but gosh, have I ever seen some flames of Leatherfaces, man. But let's talk about viability. We're not here to talk about what he does well, what he does poorly. That is what we're here to talk about. I've been recording for over an hour. What does he do well? What does he do poorly? Pro number one, his lethality is tremendous. This is a killer who... he is going to wait for you to get out in just a sliver of dead space, right? And he's going to down you. It's going to be easy for him. It's really a thing where, though some maps have more open areas than others, Leatherface just kind of waits for the chase to lead you, and he's going to try to guide you. He's going to try to zone of control, so to speak. So he's going to try to practice some zoning and get you out into a bad position, which is what he should be doing. That's how you play this character. And once he gets you out in that position, he's going to down you, and he's not going to have to work that hard to do it. So his lethality is tremendous. That ties into point number two. What else does he do well? He's an amazing looper. Pallets matter. We'll get back to the topic of pallets and the cons for him, but Leatherface is pretty good at, he just erases pallets. He forces survivors to pre-throw because of his ability, and if they don't pre-throw, he gets back to that point number one, that lethality. So kind of, damned if you do, damned if you don't. It's very rough for them. Lots to like about what Leatherface has going on in that regard. Number three, and this shouldn't surprise anybody, he has strong defense capabilities. So if he needs to defend a downed survivor, he needs to defend somebody that's in the basement or on a hook, he needs to defend an item that he made them drop with Franklin's, he can do that very easily with his chainsaw, even easier than somebody like Hillbilly. There's a lot to appreciate and to respect about Leatherface's defensive abilities. He's is why he became such a meme, because people realize that, then they'd hook you in the basement, and then they just sit there and you die. And it's not super effective, except it is, because you don't play with ideal teammates and they're gonna come down and try to save you, and then they're all dead. You're gonna get GG easy from Leatherface, or whatever Leatherface was. How he does it. Please don't wear my face. I just there's a lot to like, but we're gonna move on. We're gonna do cons. We're gonna say some negative things about Leatherface now. Number one, and there's only two, by the way. There's only two cons I came up with for Leatherface. Number one, he eats every pallet on the map. I mentioned that survivors pre-throw with him a lot. You're going to have to break every pallet on the map, which is not the case with every killer. Leatherface is very much the case. So if that's a part of the game that doesn't appeal to you, this may not be the killer for you. Leatherface is going to have to break every single pallet on the map, and as such, you'd be wise to bring something like Enduring. I wouldn't recommend Brutal Strength on him. He has his chainsaw. Why would you bring Brutal Strength? But you could. It could work out. Number two, in terms of cons for the cannibal. He has low mobility. Even with his, unless you're bringing the add-ons where he can just power through, and his mobility definitely went way up. That's one of the main reasons for his jump. But it went from atrocious to low end. He still doesn't have just amazing mobility. And it's not a massive issue for him, but it's definitely notable. So, where did Leatherface jump to? He was generally thought to be F tier, generally thought to be, generally thought to be D tier. Where is he now? Well, I debated this a lot. It was kind of tough to tell, but at the end of the day, I'm going to put him between Doctor and Huntress on B tier, because I think he's clearly better than the Doctor, but I think his upside is far lower than that of the Huntress. Huntress, who I feel worse every second not putting her in A tier, but I'm not going to go back now. She's where she is. We're not changing that. We're not. What we are changing is what killer we're talking about, and we're going to move over to the Nightmare, one Frederick Charles Krueger. I love Freddy, man. He was my first main. I don't play him anymore because, man, you just get kind of a salt factory when you play Freddy. People hate going against Freddy as much as newer players hate going up against Doctor. But why? Why is that? What is he doing well that survivors are hating? So, this is kind of vague. Pro number 1, he has a great suite of powers. Oh no, we lost connection. Come back. Please. Oh no, that can't connect. Is it Tuesday? Okay, well, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna keep this going. We will reconnect when it lets us reconnect. So I'm sorry for this. There's no way to plan for this, but we're over an hour into this video. In fact, I would imagine if I look down here, we are an hour and a half into this. So I'm not restarting it now. I'm sorry. So yeah, you look at Freddy. He has a great suite of powers, and what I mean by that. And we're gonna keep working with this while we can, and hopefully it lets us in. But number 1, with that suite of powers, he has his puddles, which I don't know what they're really called, but that's what I call them. Dream snares. That's what he calls them. Dream snares. He has his snares, and you run through them. They're like little clown bottles, but you can set them in strategic locations. Very powerful. Some would make the case they're better than clown bottles. He has his dream pallets, which, those get less effective as the survivors get better, but they're always going to be effective. There's always a place for them. He has his teleportation. Yeah, man, he can slow the game down with the dream world. This is just a guy who they essentially gave like 4 powers to, and they're all good powers. So you can probably guess he's going to be pretty high up on the tier list, which is amazing because, again, he was F tier. There was not a worse. Oh, somebody's playing. Hopefully they'll let me back in now. There was not a worse killer at a certain point in time. Now they reworked his suite of powers, and he is really, really strong now. Thing number 2, he has great mobility. Great, just fantastic mobility. He can teleport to any gen on the map. Trapper, we are not talking about you. I've roasted you enough, you beautiful, beautiful hunk. We will let you rest in peace. Gosh, there's still so many killers to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Part 2 coming soon. No, we're gonna finish this all in one take. Because Mama didn't raise no quitter. So like when 12 people watch this, it'll be worth it. But anyway, he has nice mobility. Freddy is the killer who benefits from barbecue and chili the most. You could make a case for Hillbilly, for Oni, for several others. I think Freddy is very clearly the he has a nasty little combo where he gets the hook, right? Barbecue and chili lets him know where are they out there. He teleports that gen, he uses Pop Goes the Weasel, boom. He got a hook, he's near survivors, and he reset their progress. It's disgusting, don't do it, it's mean, but I'm sure if I look at my perks right now, look at that, I'm running that. So I'm a just filthy, filthy hypocrite. But like I said, I don't really play Freddy anymore, so it's no big deal. Number 3, in terms of pros for him, it's kind of obvious, but when he's played well, he's just oppressive. He's just very... And that's not necessarily a compliment, but man, Freddy can be fun to go against. When he is using his full suite of powers in a very effective manner, especially with some of his add-ons like the swing chains, he becomes so unfun to play against. But that's also just because he's dominating. which feels worth mentioning in a discussion of viability. So, what are the downsides of Sharp Hand Joe? Downside number 1, he loses all of his mobility in the end game, and that's pretty big. So as soon as that last gen pops, he is going to lose that mobility. It's going to be unfortunate for him, but he can't get it back. It's gone. He can no longer teleport. He is now just a 115 movement speed killer like anybody else. Mobility's gone. Number 2, gosh, my throat is hurting. Number 2, survivors can escape the dream state very easily. Maybe they blow a skill check. Maybe they wake each other up by snap, 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 clap, clap, clap. Maybe they go open the little chest things, you know, whatever they're called, the dream clocks. All kinds of things they can do, and all of a sudden, his powers don't work. You can't step in the snares. You can't see the fake pallets, which, by the way, is a dead giveaway. There's a fake pallet. If you see one there you didn't remember seeing earlier, it's fake. You know, and it doesn't contribute to his teleportation ability because that's actually based around how many people are asleep. So survivors can actually counter him fairly easily. Now, he can counter their counter by just going up and giving them a slap, and old Sharp Hand Joe has the advantage again because whenever he hits you, you fall asleep. That's notable. But yeah, no, you can counter the dream state, and that's pretty good. The last con for him is kind of similar, and it's that good survivors tend to be fairly skilled in denying you your powers. So they're going to throw dream pallets that they know are dream pallets, and they're going to run through your snares as if it's nothing, all while not in chase. So you have to keep setting them up, and it's a pretty decent job on their part. But you know, it's not much because it still helps Freddy. He's finding out where people are. It could be a little obnoxious, but it could definitely be worse. So we're going to go on and find out where we put old Sharp Hand Joe. And again, keep in mind, this is a guy who, if you went back like, what, a year ago, he's here. He's down here in F tier. I loved old Freddy, but he was bad. Where is he now? He's not F tier, he's not D tier, he's not C tier, he's not B tier. I think he's A tier, and I put him above Hag. In fact, I'm going to put him above Hillbilly. I think he's better than Hillbilly. Freddy is terrifying right now. There's so much to like about what Freddy does. You could make the case that he's a top 5 killer. I would make that case. I would not so much make the case for the next killer we have. Miss Piggy, what an interesting journey it's been for you in the fog so far. Hi, I'm Das Food's evil twin. I'm the exact same, but I wear a blue shirt and I don't pour water on myself on accident between shots. So keeping on with this, you know, when we talk about the pig, we talk about Amanda Young, Miss Piggy. She's very interesting because she's another one of these killers who's very polarizing. She's going to move up and down on tier lists. Some people think she's pretty close to the bottom. Some people think she's above average. Some think she's really good. You know, it's a thing where for me, I look at somebody like Scorpions and I say, oh, look, she can be really good. But I will say it feels like I haven't seen a ton of really high tier pig gameplay. So what I want to do is I want to do the usual. Let's break down pros and cons. Let's see what it is she does really well and what she doesn't do as well. So pro number 1, she is a good stealth killer. She can sneak around. She can get those ambushes. And that's pretty hard to, that's hard to beat, honestly. It's the ability to get the drop on the survivors without a terror radius is very powerful. Next, her reverse bear traps, it seemed to be a little misunderstood. Some people say, oh, I never get a kill with these. They suck. Their point is not to kill. Their point is to slow gen progress. While they're trying to get that bear trap off, they are not doing a gen. And if they're not taking it off and they are doing a gen, congrats, you actually might get a kill with one. So quit your complaining. Number 3 for her, and this is the big one for me, is that her dash ability is so underrated. Her dash ability is everything for this killer. It's like a better version of the Demogorgon Shred. At least I think it's probably a better version. They're pretty close, though. They're both really good abilities. Maybe it's actually worse because Demogorgons can His shred can break pallets. I don't know. We'll see. They're both really good abilities either way. And, you know, it really can... it's misused a lot. People seem to think if I don't use it from an ambush position, as it were, then I'm not going to use it at all. And that's a shame because you should be using the dash in chase. Whenever you get these 50-50 plays, take them. Take a 50-50 play. Dash around this way, dash around that way, dash this way, then whoop, turn around and get them that way. It's just one of those things you learn to do as you play more and more Pig. And, you know, it's underrated. That's the word for it. It's underrated. So she definitely has some stuff going for her. But what's going against her? So number one is using her stealth abilities. You know, she crouches down, she puts those hands out like she's looking like she wants to, I don't know, like tickle you or something. I'm not really sure what she's doing with her hands when she gets down like that. But, man, it makes her mobility so bad. Her mobility just gets really, really weak. She was already slow. She already lacked mobility. And now this, it's awful. It's just awful. It's painfully slow to crawl around. And so, again, it's another thing that some people are going to use kind of incorrectly, but I can't really blame them because it's like, well, if you don't crouch the whole time, they might hear your terror radius. And if they hear your terror radius and then it disappears, they're going to be like, so it's a pig then, and she's near. Yeah, my thing with the stealth would honestly, well, it can work in your favor. I think using the stealth on Pig is probably a little bit of a bad call most of the time. Secondly, her dash comes with the roar that completely gets rid of her ability to ambush. That roar, you know what it is. You're crouched down, you hold M1. She roars like a lion. I don't know where that comes from. That's not... I'm from Mississippi. Look, it's on my shirt, Mississippi. I've been around a lot of pigs, man. They don't make that noise. I've never heard that noise from a pig. Maybe I haven't been around the right pigs. You know, if they all looked like Amanda Young, I would have been around more pigs, right? But it turns out maybe I'm the pig. But either way, the point remains... That roar, man, that really diminishes her ability to get that surprise hit. I would honestly just really be for them taking it out. I know a lot of people like the roar for meme value, but man, that roar is just not necessary. It's just not necessary. But I understand it's used in the same way that you would think like the Wraith's gong is used. You know, he's got to uncloak to let you know he's about to attack someone. Maybe it's you, maybe it's not, but I don't like it. I don't like the dash roar. It's bad. Also, another thing that's bad, number 3, her reverse bear traps are at the mercy of RNG, and the RNG is never on your side. So what you'll notice when you play Pig is that every survivor you put a bear trap on gets it off within the first 2 boxes they check. But when you're playing against Pig, she puts the bear trap on, and 4 boxes later, you're wondering if there's a box you missed because you checked them all and you still got the thing on your head and you're about to die and bob, you're gone. You know, so it's kind of funny how it works. But, yeah, I don't really know, man. It's the RNG really makes it hard to place her too high on a tier list. Anybody that's reliant on RNG, beyond what all killers are reliant on because every map is RNG. You know, the pallets are going to be in different places, some of the jungle gyms and things like that. I get it, but her power relies on RNG. So you need to think of the bear traps as just a nice complement and not as the main power. I know that they look cool, and I'm a big fan of the Saw movies, despite, you know, the Saw movies. So I obviously want to use the bear trap, but it's just not very good. So, you know, those are pros, those are cons. Where does Piggy ultimately fall? Let's go back to our tier list screen. And Pig, I'm not going to beat around the bush. Some of them I'm like, ooh, well, it could be this one or that. I'm just going to go and put it and say she's C tier to me. And she's better than Wraith. I think there's a lot to like with Pig just for the dash ability alone. But it's hard to put her too high up when, you know, I mentioned that Demogorgon has a kind of, wherever he is down here, there he is, beautiful onion boy. And has a similar power, but also additional powers that are actually useful. You know, so it's hard to put her too high, but I like her, and I think there's a case to be made that she's actually better than Michael. Maybe you could make the case. I think Michael's snowball honestly keeps him ahead of her, but you know, I like Pig. I think Pig's in a good place. A minor buff here or there, she'd be in a very good place, probably reaching B tier. But as it is, you know, she's a respectable C. Now, Now we get to talk about my boy. Now we get to talk about the killer I have easily put the most time into. That being the clown. That being Ethan Hawke, Tony's brother. This guy, gosh, he has not been very good for a very long time. But I'm here to give you a hot take that I'm not saying sarcastically. Are you ready for it? The clown is underrated. Now, I know the issues with the clown, and we're going to get into those. But let me hit you up with some pros first, right? Let me hit you up, I'm J.R.R. Tolkien. I'm about to hit you up with some beautiful pros. So, pro number one, his looping abilities are quite good. The clown is able to shut down loops. He forces survivors to throw pallets. That's one reason you're going to want brutal strength or enduring or something like that, because survivors are going to pre-throw pallets like crazy. They're going to go pallet to pallet to pallet. And look, it's going to waste your time. You're going to have your time wasted, but the thing is, clown is kind of like Trapper or Michael in the early part of the game is not really where he's expected to shine. What you want with clown is you want to slowly but steadily keep clicking off all of these pallets until all of a sudden there's nowhere to run. You can't get away from him. He's catching up to you. And the thing is, you can't even really bounce from pallet to pallet like you could with other killers, because if he's good with his gas, which most are going to be, the bottles are pretty easy to use. At least I thought so. I've watched some people play them, and maybe not, but I think they're easy to use. You know, it's he's going to catch you. He's going to down you, and then he's decent at defending the hook. We're not listing that as a pro, but he's decent at it, especially he's got some good synergy with Save the Best for Last, so I definitely recommend that on every clown build. Number two for him, that kind of goes in with his looping abilities, is he's a good zoner. So most killers, all killers, you're chasing somebody, and they're running, and they can go point A or point B. You should have a preference if they go to point A or point B. Most killers, though, can't do anything about that. Some others can, but clown is one of the few who can kind of have a say in that. All you gotta do is throw a bottle the way you don't want them to go, and most survivors are going to go the way you want them to go so as to avoid getting hit with the gas. And if they go the other way, congratulations, they're in the gas, so maybe they have to go throw the strong pallet they were heading towards, or maybe, I don't know what it is. There's all kinds of things that could happen from that, but he's a good zoner. You don't see many zoning killers in Dead by Daylight, and I think that's one reason Clown's such an unpopular pick, is because he has something of an unorthodox talent. But it is a talent all the same. And lastly, I want to, again, we're gonna click on our boy here. Look at this. He's got some good add-ons. So Redhead's Pinky Finger is a top tier add-on amongst all killers. This is what I like to call the auto DC. You hit somebody, they realize you have it, and they DC every single time. Every single time, even though you're the clown. If this was permanent, he'd be close to S tier. It's that strong. I'm sincere about that. And maybe you think, oh, he's played too much clown. He's going a little loopy in the head. Insta-down bottles. The insta-down clown, so strong. Additionally, I think the tattoo's middle finger is good. Imagine I'm all ears, except you can spam it. There is no cooldown, and it's actually, you get to choose when it's activated. Because with I'm all ears, the survivor has to fast vault or complete a fast action of some kind. With the tattoo's middle finger, you activate it. You just hit him with a bottle, which is super easy to do. It's not nearly as strong as this one, but it's good. It's a good add-on. Beyond that, all of his purple add-ons have some form of value. I would say almost all of his green add-ons. I would say the Mangled is not great, and I would say that the movement speed while reloading is kind of useless. It's not completely useless, but it's kind of there. He's got a couple of really good yellow ones. The Solvent Jug is very good. Starling Feather, the Sticky Soda Bottle, and then his best add-on outside the Pinky Finger is the Thick Quirk Stopper. And then even his brown add-ons have some use. I mean, obviously not the smelly inner souls as much, because look at that, I have 90 of them. Clearly I'm not using them very much. But Clown stands out as having particularly good add-ons for a killer regarded as being a particularly bad killer. So what are his cons? Why do people think he's so bad? Con number 1, he's got dreadful mobility. There's no way he gets from point A to point B with any gust, with any haste, with any expediency. He's gonna lumber his way over there. And you know, in a game where efficiency is king, that hurts him tremendously. I can say he's underrated all I want, but I will easily concede the point that where mobility is concerned, he's awful. He's just awful. There's nothing to like about his mobility. Point number 2, his bottles can be countered fairly well. You know, if you throw your bottle and it hits the survivor, yeah, sure, you might get the hit, or they might pre-throw the pallet, and then they just get a look at you through funny, blurry vision while you have to either break the pallet or go around it. And again, you know, it's still good for the clown. They're still throwing the pallet that they could have looped a few times, but yeah, they're not quite as effective as maybe you would hope they would be. And then third, and this is a big one for me, the more I play clown, which again, I'm a clown main. I spend a lot of time on clown. The most consistent thing I wish they would change, realistically, because obviously, look, if he could get around the map like Hillbilly, it'd be great, but that's not realistic. So what I would like to see is they fix con number 3, which is that he just has a really low amount of bottles, and the reload time is really bad. So he only has 5 base bottles, which again, kind of like the hag traps. You might think, well, 5, that's good for a chase. Yeah, I don't know, man. 5's not very good. You're gonna go through those pretty quickly. And then additionally, it's worth noting that when you decide to reload, it's basically you're taking a head-on stun or a decisive strike stun. You're taking a stun just to reload that bottle, swish it around, and get 5 more. And that kills a chase. I mean, think about that. Think if you're carrying a survivor, they hit you with decisive, and they run off. How big of a lead do they get? Because that's what they're going to get if they start running once you start reloading, which they will do. Survivors do that frequently. So that's why I mentioned the cork stopper being his best add-on, because with that one, he just says whoop, 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 and it's back. It's done. He's back on the chase. He's actually pretty close to viable with that. That's where, again, I'm not going to go into a whole food fixes, but if you want to make the clown better, nerf his reload time. Or I guess you'd be buffing it, really, but buff the reload time. It's awful. It's just awful. So where do I put my boy? Where do I put my sweet, sweet clowny boy, whom I love so much? Well, it's important to keep in mind that I have to be unbiased. So as much as I would love to put him like up here in A tier, I'm going to have to be realistic and put him in S tier. And no, obviously not. I'm going to put him in D tier. I do think he's better than Trapper. I like him more than Trapper. I think that ever since they buffed, you know, it used to be that when he would throw the bottles, he would take a slight stun, and it just wasn't worth running. Like, it wasn't worth using the bottle, so he was just a powerless killer. Ever since they fixed that, he's better. And he's closer to C tier, but man, until they give him more bottles at base value, or until they nerf the reload time, he's gonna be there. He's not gonna get out of D tier. I don't think. I think he's close to C tier. I don't think he's nearly as bad as people make him out to be, but he's still a D tier boy for me, and that's fine. He's still cute. Look at him. Look at this beautiful Pulsilla face. Look at that nose. He's like Snape. Love it. Love it. Love it. Okay. On to killers I don't love so much. You. Spirit. Yeah. We're going to power through Spirit here because everybody knows literally everything I'm about to say if you've played it at all. Also, I made a whole video on the Spirit. Go watch that. It's like, if you want to know my thoughts on Spirit, go watch that. The Spark Notes version. She has nasty looping potential. That's 1. She has great mobility. That's 2. And she's easy to play at a high level with very low experience. That's 3. Those are all 3 very good. The Spirit, she can get all over the map. She's going to make you take a lot of mind games that are pretty low risk, high reward for her. You know, she's a very frustrating killer to go against. Is she broken? Is she not? Go watch my video. It's fantastic. It has all the editing of an 8-year-old, and I'm very proud of it. What are her cons? Loud phasing noise. You hear that thing from a mile away. And then B, if you really listen closely, you can hear footsteps. So again, I don't want to, if you're a spirit player, right? I don't want to kind of shaft you and not give you a good look inside the killer that you're most fond of. But the thing is, I've already made an entire video based around the concept of the spirit. And I feel like she's a pretty well understood killer because she's so simple in so many ways. So it's not that I, hate the spirit or don't want to give her a chance. It's just that her abilities are pretty self-evident. And again, when you talk about if you're just starting with the game and you want to know who you should start putting some time into, if you want to win more than you lose, win more than you would when you start out, get the Spirits DLC. You'll have a great time with her. She's very, very strong. Again, she's a looping goddess. There's not a lot you can do to counter it. She's very, very nasty. Is she broken? Is she not? The video said no, and that video was agreed upon by everybody. So what am I supposed to say? Let's go over here. Obviously, I gave Spirit a lot of credit, and she shoots straight up to S tier. But the question: who gets to be number one? Who gets to be number one? Drum roll, please. I'm not gonna add in a drum roll sound effect. I have some dignity. I still Nurse. Yeah, I know, anticlimactic, right? Like all that. Look how strong Spirit is. I don't even need to say anything about it. Like, she's so strong. Well, yeah, but she still has to loop. Nurse really doesn't, man. Nurse really doesn't have to loop. Like, I can't stress how powerful that single fact about her is. So look, man, Spirit, there is a lot to like, and I'm not the type that gets all bitter about Spirit games. Can she be frustrating? Sure. But she's just a really strong killer, so naturally you're frustrated when you go up against those that it's like, wow, we already lose. But that's obviously not true, and you can play well and you can beat her. So congratulations to Spirit. She's very, very strong, and if you're a Spirit player, dodge my lobbies, please, you absolute psychopaths. Oh gosh, number 14, the Legion. Yeah, that's my Watch Mojo voice. Number 14, the Legion. Legion. Is there going to be a more controversial take than trying to be nice about Legion? Because at the outset, I'm going to tell you, I like the Legion. I enjoy playing Legion. I think Legion is good. And I understand that that's not a widely held belief. So let me explain. Let's get into the pros. Let's go on and tell you why I think Legion is good. Number one, and this is the big one, strong tracking capabilities. Legion, that was number 2, but we're just going to go with that one. Fine. You go into Feral Frenzy, you hit somebody, you hit somebody, and you know where the whole team is. And that's kind of nice, isn't it? Isn't that kind of nice to get those wall hacks for that short amount of time? I think it's nice. A lot of people don't seem to value that very much, but I do. I think that's good. Now, again, this is where I talk about personal bias coming in. I'm not a great tracker, so a killer that has built-in wall hacks is naturally appealing to me. I like that. But that's not why I'm going to be kind to Legion here. That's not the main reason. The main reason, and what I'm going to say first overall, so number 2, I guess, is that no killer, 0 killers, no other killer can injure the entire enemy team quite as quickly as Legion. Legion can, within the span of 30 seconds, have the entire enemy team injured. And that's without them all crowding around a basement hook or something. This is without insane altruism. This is in a regular situation. Legion has the ability to injure the entire team just like that. He can do it. They can do it, I should say, because it's two men, 2 women. They can do it, and they can do it with relative ease, especially if they bring some of their better add-ons for Feral Frenzy time and all that. There's a lot to like about that, because it puts survivors in a place where number three pro, right, is that they can make survivors waste a lot of time. And I know you always want to say, well, here's what an optimal survivor will do. You're not going to play an optimal survivor every game. You're not going to play one multiple, like in most games. It's only every few games where you get one of those survive with friends that just stomp you and make you want to, you know, go play Fall Guys or something. But which I do sometimes. But sometimes I need a break. With the Legion, they go around, they injure everybody, and then the smart thing to do is once they pick who they're going after, the rest just need to hop on a generator and power through it. But you see, the lower skill level the survivor is, the less confidence they have in themselves to be able to loop in the injured state. So they heal. That's why it's so good for Legion to bring things like Sloppy Butcher or Thanatophobia. You want them to waste time healing, especially if they go self-care against Legion, they're giving you the game. And this is, again, something that Legion just does very, very well. So there's a lot to like about that, and I'm really, really not sure why people are so hard on the Legion, when basically their power is, hey, either stay injured the whole game, or lose. Those are your two options. You can't DC, except you can, and people do frequently. So what are the cons, right? What are the downsides of Legion? What are people doing so that they seem to think Legion is F or D tier, right? Con number one is it's so easy to misuse their power. People seem to have a general idea. When I watch Legion players, I see this idea where it's all or nothing. You're either going to injure the entire team, or you're going to injure one of them and then instantly exit your Feral Frenzy. Neither of those are using the power very well. You want to hit everyone in the immediate era. Wow. You're going to hit everyone in the immediate area. That's the word I was looking for. And then you're going to pick your target. If somebody's really far away, you need to realize when it's just not a time to go after them. If you have somebody close, though, you don't want to tag the first person and then engage in a chase with them. That's just really not a responsible use of the power. So it's easy to misuse the power. I get that. Additionally, number two, Legion has weak add-ons. Legion has a few add-ons that I think are pretty good. You look here, Cold Dirt is strong. I like Cold Dirt a lot. But then some of them, like the Eerie Button, honestly, it seems super strong. Wow, if I vault a pallet, it's broken. And my terror radius affects the entire map. Doesn't work on good players. It just doesn't. It seems like a great idea, but it's really not. It's not a great idea. So, you know, that's another thing. And then number three, and this was kind of something we mentioned in the pros, but the cons. You can be countered by confident survivors, skilled survivors, who aren't going to heal. They're just going to power through the gens in spite of being injured. Because then, let me put it out here, and this is where Legion is proved to be at their weakest, right? You go into your next Feral Frenzy, and yeah, you can go hit somebody else and put them in the deep wound state again, but if they're already injured, you've lost the main purpose for doing that. And all of a sudden your power is really just a glorified mobility power. And you don't want that. That's not good. That's not very useful. You know, there are plenty of killers with mobility powers, but they're far better mobility powers. So, you know, I'm acknowledging there's a substantial counter to the Legion. And it's fair game to mention. I think Legion are kind of decent. They're decent. And you know, I'm trying to go to bat for them here, but I'm not going to lie that Feral Frenzy is not the greatest. It's not the greatest ability. So let's move over. Let's look where they're going to go. Hopefully you've kind of picked up on it, because I mentioned that they're not, I don't think they're F or D tier, but they're very clearly not S or A tier. I'm going to give them C tier. I'm going to put them above the Wraith. And look, this is already getting kind of controversial, right? Going to put them above the Wraith. And I'm going to put them above the Pig. A lot of people, I already know, if, we're a small channel, if there are comments and they're upset, it's probably going to be about this. I understand that. I would just say, if you're really anti-Legion, go play some more Legion. Go play play several games back to back to back, and tell me you don't kind of start to feel that there's a pattern, there's a method to the madness, and you start to understand, hey, this killer can actually be kind of decent. And maybe you disagree with me, and that's okay too. You know, I still want to be your friend. Yeah, you're just my wrong friend. Moving on to the Plague. the plague, right? Is that meme still around? No. Good. It's the perfect time for me to use it. Okay, plague. She's underwhelming. I'm sorry, she's an underwhelming killer. I came up with 2 pros for her. Pro 1 is she gives survivors a damned if they do, damned if they don't type scenario. Do you cleanse? Well, if you do, she's going to get her red spit. And if you don't, you're going to be injured the entire match. So make your choice. Not the perk, but make your choice. And just know that whatever you choose is probably wrong. That's powerful. I'm not arguing that that's not good. I just think that, again, when you're talking about, well, what if this killer's played at a high level? I'm kind of also assuming you're playing survivors who aren't total potatoes. And good loopers are going to waste a lot of her time. Number 2, though, you know, so often you see perks come out that don't synergize with the character that they came with. And I always think that's really funny. But, you know, I want to give them credit and go over here. And Infectious Fright, right? Perfect with Plague. Plague benefits tremendously from Infectious Fright. This is a perk that seems like it was designed for her. And it's regardless of which way the survivors have decided to play, but especially if they decide to stay broken. But yeah, her snowball potential. Go back to it, right? Snowball potential. Way there we go. If you're doing the drinking game, you're dead by now. Snowball potential is her best friend. She can take a game from a sure loss to a comeback victory in a matter of seconds. It's her best feature. It's her best quality. Where she gets put on here, as high as it is all thanks to her snowball potential. Of course, I do need to mention there's some notable cons with the plague. The first one being that her mobility is clown levels of bad. She has terrible mobility, no way to get around the map. And I would actually say it's worse than the clowns. I know, I was hard on clown's mobility. Hers is worse because with the clown, in the very least, once he starts approaching and you start trying to run, he can have a bottle ready. He doesn't slow down when he raises up his bottles and gets them to max charge. He can throw that bottle and slow you down and catch up some more. Plague, you're going to get that head start. She's going to struggle to catch you. Her mobility is awful, awful, awful. Bad mobility, bad Plague. Get faster. You have long legs. How are you this slow? Number 2, and this goes back to a plague, the plague of hers. Damn it, William. Damn it, William. Goes back to a pro of hers. In the damned if they do, damned if they don't choice was a con still too, because it is a choice. The survivors get to dictate how the game goes. And as a killer, you never want that. You don't want survivors dictating to you how the game's going to go. So obviously, very unfortunate for her that it's like that, and it's one reason I have a hard time putting her very high up on this list, frankly. Lastly, I want to put it out there that part of it that goes into her mobility also is that her mobility goes into this last con for her. She's not a very good looper. She has no way to shut down loops early unless she has her red spit, and 9 times out of 10, she's not going to have that. So, don't you like how every statistic I have is 9 times out of 10? We could have done that as a drinking game. I've probably said that more than snowball, more than lethality, more than mobility. Wow. 9 times out of 10. That's the statistic I use. Oh my gosh. Okay, so where do we put Plague? Where do we put her on here? It's not great. It's not great, you know. And I'm gonna have to explain something here, so gosh, I'm a little torn. I know she's C tier, right? I know she's C tier. I'm gonna put her at the back of C tier. And what I want to point out is I'm saying, ooh, it's not great, it's not great, it's not great. But then the entry before, I took a C tier character in Legion and I said, wow, they're underrated. The difference is everybody thinks Legion is down here, whereas when I talk with the casual players, especially that I play with, they always want to put Plague up here. They think, oh, she's very good. And they don't seem to be aware of her shortcomings. And I understand that. That's fine. Everybody has different opinions, different perspectives. For me personally, I'm very unimpressed with the Plague. I cannot say I am unimpressed with Ghosty the Face, however. This lad, which by the way, what a cosmetic. Oh gosh, the chrome mask, just beautiful. But he is. I'm gonna say this right at the outset. He is the best stealth killer. If you are interested in playing a stealth killer, pick you up that Ghostface DLC. It's it's a paragraph instead of a chapter, so you're only buying him. It's cheaper than other DLCs. If you're new to the game, or maybe you've been playing for a bit, but you don't have all the DLCs, and you're like, wow, I really want to, I want to give stealth a try, but man, every time I play Wraith, I get stomped. When I play Michael, my brain hurts. Come in and give Ghostface a try. Ghostface is the best stealth killer. Now, why is he the best stealth killer? He must have pros, right? He does. He has pros. Look at this. I have a whole spreadsheet of pros. 3 of them. What are they? Firstly, number 1. He has a great looping power. His ability to drop his red stain is tremendous. So, you'll notice with a lot of killers, especially again as you get higher and higher up the ranks. I hate to say that. It sounds like I'm flexing that I'm red rank. Like, guys, it's just because I play the game very frequently. I get it. I'm not saying I'm better than anyone else. But as you get to red ranks, one thing you'll see killers do very frequently is moonwalk to hide their red stain. Ghostface doesn't have to do that, meaning he gets to get rid of his red stain with the simple press of his power button. He gets rid of his terror radius, his red stain. He can crouch down to break sight lines. He continues to see really well. He doesn't have to turn around. He's very good. He's very good at these mental games, the mind tricks. Mind tricks, is that? Yeah, mind trick. I don't know why that sounded odd when I said it, but yeah, no, he's very strong on 50-50 pallets and things like that. He's very hard to beat on that, and you know that's a very strong ability. Coupling with that, and again, as power related, man, he's dominant on indoor maps. There is so much to like about there is so much to like about his ability to just get grabs on gens. I mean, you know, there was a tome, and it was, hey, get like 4 grabs off of gens or something. I did all of them with Ghostface. It was just so easy. Frankly, unless you're going up against, you can say really good survivor or a survivor with spine chill, a good Ghostface is going to get a lot of grabs. And you know, he's a very impressive killer. There's a lot to like about that. Lastly, I do want to give him credit. The third thing, his snowball potential is a little underrated, and this is where creativity is necessary. Basically, he can charge up everybody's stalk meter, stalk one at a time, down them within he gets them exposed within a second, and then he downs them. It's very effective. It's risky though. It's risky because you have to basically not chase and not hit survivors until you're ready for your opera of death. But once you get to that point, it's really satisfying, and it's an underrated snowball. It's the little snowball that could. So good on Ghostface for that. The cons, he is countered by several maps. If you have ever tried to play him on a corn map, or especially somewhere like the Blood Lodge, you know the pain that it is to exist on that map as Ghostface. They're just maps that don't do him much justice. Secondly, his stalking power will more often than not be useless. Again, if you just want this cacophony of death at the end, you can do it. But most people aren't going to wait that long because it is very, let's go back to the term feast or famine. And you're going to have plenty of times where you do not feast at all. So there are plenty of people who really don't want to do that. And lastly, his early game is not very strong. He's not going to wow you with what he does in the early game. So that's notable. That's some people really like a hot start, and with Ghostface, you just don't really get that. So let's go back to here. Where do we put Ghostface? I'm going to put him in B tier. Who do we like him more than in B tier? We like him more than Doctor. It's kind of funny. The stealthiest killer versus the loudest killer, right? In this case, the tracking is nice. The stealth is better. I'm actually really, really torn when it comes to Leatherface or Ghostface. But at the end of the day, and maybe this is just a personal flavor thing, I picked the stealth over the really solid looping ability. They're both good loopers. They're both good loopers, but one's like a god looper. But I think Ghostface offers more ability to outsmart the survivors, and I always love that. That means there's a skill ceiling there, and you know me, if there's one thing I love, it's a good It's a good skill ceiling for others. Okay, Onion Head. Look at that. The end is in sight. We have powered through this, man. And thank you so much. If you have watched this whole thing and stuck with me, you are just a saint of a person. I will reach out to the Queen herself. I will get united. I will do it. Or I'm not a British citizen. Okay, so Dimmadoggo, beautiful. He's beautiful. Look at him. I love him so much. I'm a big fan of Stranger Things season 1, and let's talk about it because ooh boy, I thought Legion might be my spiciest take, but oh yeah, he's angry. He's nice and angry, but man, I have a lot to say about the Demogorgon, but my throat is also very sore from all of this talking, so maybe I don't. Demogorgon is super underrated. Tremendously underrated. He's angry that you underrate him. Gosh, I've got to switch off of him. He keeps freaking yelling at me. What are the pros of Demogorgon? What does he do that makes him so underrated? Well, first off, he's so good in a chase. He's so good. He can close that gap. He can shred the pallets. He is just phenomenal in chases. And if more people would commit to getting really good with his shred ability, I think we would actually probably start to hear complaints about, hey, Demogorgon, he's too good. I just, honestly, man, there is so much to like about the Demogorgon. That shred ability is just freaking nasty, man. So nasty. Secondly, his mobility is really good. The main issue I see with Demogorgon players is they get out there and they don't put their damn portals, I couldn't remember the word, they're portals on the ground that they use to crawl through the upside down. Man, if you're not putting them down, you're missing a major part of his components of what makes him work. Put portals near every gen. Boom, 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 boom. You're all around the map. You're going to kill everybody. It's fantastic. Love his mobility. I love his mobility. He's very talented in that regard, in terms of getting around the map and doing some real damage. Because he gets around quickly, and then he's great in the chase. You do the math on why that makes him dangerous. Except you don't have to. I'm about to do the math. I'm going to put him on the tier list. Lastly, let's give him some room for creativity. That's the third one, is that there's the room for creativity. And that's kind of interesting. And that's something where I'm mainly talking about his portal placement. You can be really predictable and put them right next to the portals, but that's going to pretty much guarantee that survivors break them when they find them. And while they might do it anyway, what you want to do is, if you're in a position where your time will allow you to, or maybe you know the map really well and it's not going to take you any time at all, it's actually a pretty good idea to put it to where when you teleport, you know, you get the undetectable status as you're coming out of the portal. So it's a great thing to come out undetectable and get the jump on them. Come out from somewhere they're not expecting it. And if you make the creative plays, you're going to find a lot of games going your way. So Demogorgon, very, very fun. First off, he passes the fun test with just in spades. But he's also very viable. What are the cons? Say you're trying to make like why Das Food is stupid, why he's wrong, why the Demogorgon's not that good. What does Demogorgon do poorly? Well, the number one thing, and this is a massive thing, his mobility can be destroyed by survivors. Like, as much as it's like, I can't stress, Nurse doesn't have to loop. How great is that? When you have such a big part of your power that can be destroyed by survivors, I've distressed that a lot too. That's notable. That is a really notable thing. You know, they can destroy your portals once you've used them. And I generally would say good survivors will destroy your portals. Now, sure, you can go put them back down, but that's wasted time. And wasted time is the cardinal sin for killers or survivors. So you don't want to waste that time. So that's definitely bad. Secondly, shred can take some getting used to. There are a lot of times where you're going to think you're about to hit a shred, and then you're not going to. One thing I love about facing Demogorgons is when I'm playing one and I realize, oh, this player hasn't figured out the shred yet. So, you know, they do that thing, they pop it out, they're ready, they dive at you, and then whoop, they miss. They miss wide, or they come up just short, or, you know, they're going to have to eat the stun for missing their shred. And, you know, it takes getting used to. It really does. Oh, goodness. And lastly, let's go on and put this one out here. It's kind of funny, I guess, but look at him. He's too tall. If you're on a medium length loop, the survivor can see you but you can't see them, making mind games very, very difficult. That may seem like a small thing. It may be a small thing, but you're not going to think it's a very small thing when it comes back to bite you. So, you know, just fair warning there. Okay, one last thing before I put Demogorgon on the tier list that I forgot to mention because I didn't have it written down, but it's important. The synergy with Save the Best for Last is at an all-time high with Demogorgon, because when you hit a survivor with your shred ability, which is not that hard to do once you're used to it, you don't lose stacks. So you just don't hit your obsession with anything but shreds, then you M1 everybody else, and all of a sudden you've got 8 stacks, which let me make sure I'm telling you right here. You get 5%, so 5 times 8, that's 40. You are almost cutting it in half, the amount of time it takes you to recover from your M1. It's incredible. It's a very, he loves it. It's a very, I can't wait to get to Oni. He's next. He makes even more noise. It's very, very impressive to me. It's just synergy like few other perks have with their killer. Not that they're killers, and he didn't bring that perk in the game. Michael did, but it works really well with him. So where does old Onion Head go? Well, up pretty high. I'm going to give him B tier. I'm going to give him B tier. He would be A tier if his portals were not able to be destroyed, but they are, so I'm going to try to actually take that into account. I'm going to put him right here behind Huntress. Very, very good place to be. And again, I think Demogorgon's a good example where when I say, hey, model your killers after the Huntress in terms of counterability and viability. They did that. He's fantastic. I love the Demogorgon. I stand the Demogorgon. This chapter was so good for the game. All right, up next, Oni, who has the best skin of any character. Easily. You got Minotaur Oni. Look at that. That is so cool. That is just so cool. That is the only legendary skin worth buying. Oh my gosh. Okay. Back. We actually got to talk about what makes him good, and he's very, very good. Oni. What are his pros? Firstly, he has the snowiest of snowballs. There is probably no killer that can quite turn it on and end the game. Just it's like going along. I kind of think of Think of a game of Dead by Daylight, like a game of tug of war. Like both sides are just kind of pulling, we're winning, the killer's winning. Well, Oni, with his ability, once he goes into Yamaoka's Wrath, he can just kind of yank the rope away and end it right there. It is such a powerful ability, and the fact that he can charge it relatively quickly, it feels kind of nasty. His power is very, very strong. There is a lot to like about what he's got going on there. Additionally, he's lethal in the same way the Hillbilly is, but with fewer snags. He's not going to overheat. He's not difficult to control. If you hit a tree, guess what? You can keep going. You're not going to go through the stun animation, meaning you can take some riskier paths with the Oni and get some cheekier downs. He's a very, very good killer. There's a lot to like about him. Also, his power is the anti-Legion. Legion wounds you. Don't heal. Just keep working. Oni's the other way. If you don't heal against Oni, he's going to demon dash the hell out of you, and you're going to have a very, very bad time with it. So, look, guys, you have to heal against the Oni. You have to heal against Oni. If you don't, very, very bad days ahead. Just putting it out there for you. Just letting you know. It's a public service announcement. Okay, what are his cons? He's clearly very good. He's going to be very high on the tier list. But what are his cons? Number one, he has a limited power, meaning that when he's not in his Yamaoka's Wrath, is that what his is called? Or is that the spirit? He's Wrath. She's haunting or something. What is she called? Yamaoka's haunting. I was right. I know things. Okay, when he is not, this old big chungus, when he's not in his final Frieza form, he's not nearly as intimidating. He's just an M1 killer at that point, which is pretty notable because it means he spends entire chunks of the game just being rather unremarkable. Also, he's countered by healing perks. Things like, especially Will Make It, but also Botany Knowledge, Inner Strength, things like that. they're really going to do him a lot of harm, and the survivors are going to heal up quickly and give him fewer blood orbs to work with. Now, it is worth noting, I actually think self-care helps him, because if you can find where they were self-caring, you're going to find a massive pool of blood orbs that will probably give you your power. So that particular one doesn't really hurt him like you might think it would. Lastly, Demon Dash as an ability, it can be kind of tricky to master. I mean, it's definitely a thing where, survivors have gotten pretty good at Z pattern. They're going to go back and forth and circle around you, and you're going to lift that thing up and get ready to bam, bam, and then boom, you miss. You can't hit them. Really good Onis, this is not a problem for. But if you're even if you're just a good Oni, you're going to have times where you get countered pretty hard with a good 360 or something. And don't feel bad if you do. Just work and you'll get better at it. But Oni, oh my gosh, Oni, there's a lot to like with Oni. And what I'm going to do with Oni is put him up here in A tier. He's up here in A tier. Who's he better than in A tier? Well, all the A tier ones are pretty damn good. So where do we put him? We're going to put him above Hag. Yeah, I like that. I think he's better than Hillbilly. We're going to put him there. And this is where it gets tough. Who's better? The Oni or Freddy? I'm going to give it to Oni. Some people would disagree with that. Some would put Freddy above Oni. I personally feel as if I am more likely to win the game with Oni. It is very much a matter of personal preference, but there are fewer ways to counter the Oni, and therefore I kind of prefer him over Freddy. Both of them fantastic killers, though. Not much in the way of going wrong with them. Speaking of fantastic killers, we got Outlaw McGraw over here, the Deathslinger, who, that's lovely. That was very yellow. Thank you. As you can see, despite his relatively new status as compared to all these other killers, he's Prestige 3. I really enjoyed the Deathslinger. I'm not a great Deathslinger, but I really enjoy his playstyle. And, what's good about him, right? Why did I rush him to Prestige 3? Well, firstly, he's got great range. You are very rarely out of his range if you don't have a solid barrier between you when you're in a chase. So you have to be very careful, because if you leave him an open line of sight, there are Deathslingers who are very good at popping that up, popping the gun up, and boom, they get you. They get you. It's an easy hit for them. You must keep something between the two of you. And by the way, a pallet's not always even enough. Maybe you throw the pallet down and he still shoots you. Well, if you were healthy, he's gonna put you in the injured state with that. So you have to watch out, man. Oni, we're still on Oni. He's just that good. He took another player's skin, very Leatherface of him. Wow, it's a crossover. But anyway, no, we're talking about Deathslinger. Talking about the Howdy Boy. He, as you can tell, I don't have a good nickname for him. We've gone through several. Nothing's as bad as Outlaw McGraw, but they're all pretty bad. Anyway, he's got great range. He's got great stealth potential. So this is pretty nasty. Look at that, 24 meters. Already below the 32 meters that most killers have. But then when you put on a little perk called Monitor and Abuse, he drops all the way down to a 16-meter terror radius, which I believe is what the Hag has. No, she has a 24-meter, just like him. Damn, that is a tiny terror radius. So he can get in range to shoot you before the terror radius ever makes itself known, meaning you need to pay attention or you're going to get hooked. Hooked with his gun, and then hooked with the hook. Harpooned, I suppose, with his gun. So there is insane stealth potential for him. Lastly, and this is one that it's a double-edged sword. He discourages late game altruism. So survivors that are healthy are still going to be a little greedy. But, you're not going to have an injured survivor teabagging at the gate if you're Deathslinger. They're going to leave because they know you can sneak up on them, you can get a quick shot off, and then you can reel them out of that exit gate and kill them. It's really amazing how unwilling to be altruistic a lot of survivors are against the Deathslinger. That's because he punishes altruism. And it's not just late game, but it's mainly... Late game's the really notable time, but it's also worth noting that it can be hard to make a save when the Deathslinger is in the basement. He can really, really defend a basement. What are the cons? So he's got really bad movement speed. If you look here, he moves 4.4 per second, which we're just going to go up to Trapper here and say he's 4.6. So that may not seem like a big thing, right? 4.4 to 4.6, but in looping, it matters. So his movement speed is really, really not great. Nowhere near as bad as he was at 3.8. I don't know why I went to 9. Holy shit. 3.8 of the Nurse. So obviously it's way better than that, but he is a slower than average killer, so you need to keep that in mind and don't try to loop like you would with another killer. Additionally, moving into another downside for him, and we mentioned this earlier, his hitboxes are unreliable, much like the Huntress's. He requires precision, and precision is not what you get with these servers. So you're going to have times where you really feel like you got a hit, and it's not going to give it to you. I remember watching Otofu on one of his streams, and he's done this before, but it was one stream in particular, where it just really looked like he was hitting shot after shot after shot, but none of them were registering with the game. So, you know, that limits how good the Deathslinger can be. He is a solid killer, but he's at the mercy of a very unreliable system, and that has to be taken into account. So taking that into account, as well as everything else we discussed, where do we put him? We put him up pretty high. He's a good killer. I am going to put him B tier, and I'm going to give him this spot right here. In fact, you know what? I'm actually going to put him above Demogorgon. Deathslinger is a very solid killer. And, you know, honestly, if you come to Dead by Daylight from the first-person shooter scene, you may actually like him. He's got a gun, and for all of the issues with some of the accuracy on account of the servers, generally, if you hit the shot, it will give you the hit. So, you know, there's a lot to like there. It's pretty hard to argue against Deathslinger. He's definitely one of the better killers. And you'll notice, by the way, we've gotten all this way in the list, and there is not a single F-tier killer. F-tier, to me, means it's not viable. They need a strong rework. We're not there, so good job, Behavior. Very happy with this. Let's move on to somebody that, oh man, a lot of people are not very happy with at the moment, and that is the Executioner, better known as Pyramid Head. So, oh gosh, I just want to geek out over the fact that we have Pyramid Head in Dead by Daylight. That is so cool to me. That is, oh, I'm not going to go into it. I'm not going to go into like nerd mode. But I'm a proud nerd, firstly. Oh, damn, man. Damn, that's so cool. I love that they took a video game icon and put him in there. That's fantastic. But anyway, enough of that. That's not going to impact his ranking. What's going to impact his ranking are a set of pros that I put together. Pro number 1. His power set is amazing. His, now, you know, you look at him, and when he first came out, everybody had the same reaction. Wow. Look at all those powers. But basically, what you need to know is Punishment of the Damned is what we're talking about here when I talk about how good his power is. That ability is nasty. And I'm not actually going to harp on it here too much because I'm going to talk about it later on in another pro. But coupled with Rites of Judgment and Cages of Atonement, as well as Final Judgment, he's got a nice, you know, we talked about Freddy having a suite of powers. The same goes for Pyramid Head, and it's really impressive to see. And good Pyramid Heads can really put those together in a nasty type of way. He has a high lethality rate. He is one of one of 2 killers, him and Michael, that can kill people without a Mori or a perk. You know, this is a guy who, if he's patient with his Rites of Judgment, he can hit you with that Final Judgment, and that's it. It's over. And, you know, that's impressive. That lethality is very good. Obviously, in a chase, he's very lethal. And then also, let's go into number 3, which, again, I'm just kind of piggybacking. I realize that, but we're gonna go with it and say the easy animation hits. So when he sees you're about to vault a window, about to throw a pallet, about to do any of that, that's an easy hit for Pyramid Head. I've heard some people argue, oh, well, Will, what if they run to the left or the right? Yeah, you have to be ready for that, and that's the difference between a good Pyramid Head and a not good Pyramid Head. But yeah, it makes for really easy hits, man. I've given Spirit a hard time for her main mind game being standing still. Pyramid Heads is kind of similar, where he puts his knife in the ground. It's like, well, If I vault it, he's going to hit me with Punishment of the Damned. And if I run away from it, he's just going to walk up and M1 me. What is my choice? Just really how I get downed, not if I get downed. It's nasty. It's a disgusting ability. And it's the reason he's going to rank so high on this. But he does have cons. Firstly, he has low mobility. Secondly, he's very difficult for new players. And lastly, Trails of Torment are not that impactful. It's funny, though, because when he first came out especially, survivors would avoid the Trails of Torment like, oh man, if we step in this, we're dead. But you're not. They don't actually do that much. Especially not if the Pyramid Head is impatient. If he's patient and he waits to hit you with Final Judgment, yeah, okay, you probably shouldn't have stepped in the trail. But they're not that impactful. So, what does all that equal up to? What are we going to say about old Pyramid Head? Where does he go? We're down to the final two. We're about to leave Blight all by himself for a minute. Where does Pyramid Head go? He goes up to A tier. He is in A tier, if for no other reason than that false choice of do I vault it or do I not? It doesn't matter. He's going to hit you anyway. And because that is so powerful and so good, I'm going to put him above Hag, and I'm going to put him above Hillbilly. And it feels bad because I love Hag and Hillbilly. But there's just, oh man, there's a lot to like about Pyramid Head as Pyramid Head, and there's a lot to hate about him as a survivor. So we are going to move into our last one here. We're going to do Blight, and I mentioned some like 2 hours ago because this video, my gosh, it's long. There is a caveat with the Blight. That caveat being, I have not played very much Blight. We're probably talking 10 to 15 games as Blight. And I have mixed feelings on Blight. My initial feeling is very harsh in a negative direction. But sometimes it takes getting used to. I mean, remember, when I first started playing her, I'm like, man, I'm so bad with her. And the only reason I didn't say, oh, she's trash, she's garbage, was because A, I understood the potential, and B, the entire community was saying, she's good, just learn her. Nobody's saying that for Blight yet. And maybe it's because he's not good, maybe it's because nobody's learned him effectively yet. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm not comfortable making that call yet. So I'm going to give you some pros, give you some cons, and give you a tentative ranking. But I'm going to let you know that I will defend any ranking I put on here, except for this one. And I guess that's not the right. I'll defend it, but I'll say that I'm very open to the thought that I might be wrong here. Pros: high mobility and a potentially higher skill ceiling. It is possible that the best of the best get to be unstoppable with this guy. That they can pinball around the map and down survivors like it's nothing. It's possible. I don't think it's likely, but it's possible. The cons would be he has tremendously low lethality. You know, he has what's called lethal dash, and it's not lethal. It injures them but doesn't down them, which is odd. He's very buggy at the moment. It's so frustrating. Sometimes it feels like he just kind of glides along the wall. You know, I think of it was kind of a glitch where I hate to bring normie talking to this, but in Overwatch when they released Doomfist. He would charge up his punch, he'd hit somebody, and when they hit the wall, they just slide along it instead of sticking. And it was very frustrating. It feels like the same thing happens a lot with the Blight, where you try to go bounce off of something, and he just kind of rides it, and all of a sudden you're out of the chase you were trying to do. And it's very frustrating. Sometimes he hits the right leaf on something you're passing by just right, and that counts as a stun. He's very very hard to control at the moment because of those things. And then lastly, it's a compliment and a bit of an insult. His power is inspired but unimpressive. So much like the Plague, who it's like, who thought, oh, well, we'll have a killer that vomits on people, and that's her power. In the same way, it's like, who thought, well, this dude, he's just going to ding, 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 pinball off the walls. Who thought that? I like it. It's a cool idea, and I really hope they get it ironed out, and I hope they raise his viability a little more. Because right now, I'm just going to be harsh. I'm going to put him where I think he belongs. And it's not F tier, but it's D tier, and I think he's the worst killer in the game right now. I hate to do it to him. I really want to like the Blight, and I think that in time I might get there. But, currently I'm not there, and that matters. So that's going to do it. He's D tier. Also, something has been irking me all this time. So if you don't mind, we're just going to... Oh, yeah. Okay, that's Okay, now that is my final tier list. And look, guys, it's not perfect. I'm sure there are a lot of disagreements. I look at some of these and I see, clown's not in last. That's not going to be popular. You know what? Legion is above 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 killers. Am I crazy? Demogorgon, high B tier? What? You know, I'm sure there are all kinds of things. Some people will be like, Spirit's not number 1. I get that. I get it, guys. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter. If you have your opinion, mine is no more valid than yours. This is just, in my experience, which is about 2,000 hours of gameplay, this is what I'm coming up with. Please do let me know down below if you, first off, if you enjoyed the video. This took forever to record, and my throat is killing me, and I'm realizing that I should probably start warming up my vocal cords before I do this type of video. But, you know, guys, I just want to give you something really cool, something really lengthy, so we can spend a lot of time together. It feels like I'm actually signing out of a stream right now because this took so long. But I had fun, and I hope you did too. Let me know below, again, what your disagreements are, what your agreements are. Maybe you're down there and you're like, man, you know what? I agree with you on the Legion, or I agree with you on the Clown, or I agree with you on this, that, or the other. I agree with all of it. What a perfect list. You say that, and who knows, maybe I give your comment a heart. But, I really do hope you had a good time, and I hope that you will stick around, and I'll see you next time. Please do remember to follow me on Twitch at das_food. That is DAS_food. I do stream. You'll get to see me playing these killers, and you'll get to come in and say, hey, Will, you said Oni was A tier. Why have you gone a 0K with him? And then I'll be able to laugh and say, haha, banned. But thank you so much for stopping by, guys. I really do appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you around for the next one. Until then, bye, foodies. Yo, check it out. Guess who does not have an outro song yet? Yeah, that's right. It's this guy. You should still hit the subscribe button, or go check out one of my past videos. They're so good. But you don't have to do that if that's not a thing you want to do. But you know, nobody's stopping you. Just do what you do.